me if I say something. Yes.
Right, there we go.
Okay, got it. Great. So yes. So from I wasn't at the last week town hall, but now that Dor brought this up, so I had the opportunity to listen to the YouTube. Yes, and with fresh eyes and not being there and not having the opportunity to read the comments. I just wanted to share as a starter, yes, how I looked at it. So there's one community member coming in and just tells their, here is how I voted. I do not know now if votes should be secret or not, so we don't influence others. This was the first thing which stood out, like, for me. Okay, why is he telling me that? Because I mean, should I vote like him or? But okay. So, but then, coming back, I'm like, all right, so he doesn't like impact. Obviously, for me, it was a knife in my heart directly. It's not that. I mean, I'm also a technologist, obviously, and I want the best technology to implement the impact project on the best technology. So, there's nothing against the guy. It's more like it didn't seem collaborative enough to me, but many other issues came to mind. And of course, so there's this influence as well, accountability for I mean, even the word collaboration, right? When it comes to voting, I mean, I can influence people. Yes, this is my right, but am I going to game the system if I have a stake in technology and then I'm going to influence everybody to vote on technology? Is this correct? Is this? And then, so I'm just giving you my thought process. And then I was listening to some of my favorite books on the topic and thinking, okay, sleeping on it. So what came to me, Ernesto and beloved Catalyst community, was that it was a truth which I found in a book. And I think it's an ethics book. I even don't remember because I just wrote it there quickly. And that is, it rang very strongly to me in this context. And this is what I want to kind of set maybe as a framework for the discussion. And I know, Ernesto, that you prepare some slides and they may be about something else, and that's fine. But I think overall, we can live with each other if we understand that each of us cannot perceive the world except through the means of an ethical framework, right? So what are my values and beliefs? And am I aligned with myself in the first place? And I have to stay true to myself, but then am I in the right community, in the right spot? Everything I do, if I vote on something, it will come from that place, from my values and beliefs, from this ethical framework. So I think, of course, it starts with an inquiry into ourselves first. And then, of course, I don't expect everybody to think like me. But as a community, because we use this word, yes, and of course, there are people who think different than me in this community. I hope so. I will learn from them, and gladly so. But then how do we reconcile when it comes to one man, one vote on certain things and on everything? If it is not one man, one vote, because of course we love equality, but maybe sometimes I'm not qualified to vote on some technology which I don't understand. And then I'd rather not, or delegate my vote to someone who understands. But then how about stake? Yes, I have stake in the game, but if I have stake in the game, I'm already corrupt because I'm going to vote on what I want to on something which will increase my stake even more. So there are problems with that as well. And even, I mean, the anti-fragile, which Dor always gives as an example, in the book, there is a particular chapter exactly about this. If you want to go to the book, you will find it. And he also wrote a book. Taleb wrote a book called Stake in the Game. So it is all about how we as individuals get corrupt when we have too much stake in the game, and how can we actually ungame the system. So therefore, I was thinking to try to find better ways of doing things, better rules, if we can abstract them in rules, to put them in DAOs. In this session, in a conversation with Ernesto, and of course, I count on Felix, and thank you for being here, Felix. Thank you also for your invitation and this opportunity to meet the community again. But I count on you that you will monitor the questions from the community and interrupt us, please, if we are not on track, because this is for the community to hear them in the first place, to learn from them and with them. And when I say them, I don't feel comfortable, because I really feel I am one of you, and it's in this transition. I still have that head of IO, and it's very interesting. It's a very interesting process. Yes, also for me as a person. But this is for another session. It's gonna take a long time to share that. Sometimes I can call it I cry on Felix's shoulder about my own trials in this transition, but it's all good. So I think with this, Ernesto, if you so the idea was, what's in a vote? And for me, the answer is in a vote. In my vote are my values in the first place. I'm gonna vote for someone who mirrors my values. And then, okay, am I in the right place? Am I in the right community? And it doesn't matter if I want to be in a community, how can I actually find my place in this universe? And are there any rules that can cluster those of us who share the same values? So I think these are probably questions which came to my mind when I listened to that YouTube, and also especially because how Dor said. I mean, why? If I were Dor, I'm like, why do you apologize in the first place? I don't. The only reason why I would apologize is that he only gave voice to one person, and the rest is on the person, right? I mean, if Dor would have brought me there, and who knows, I say something which the community doesn't like, it's not Dor. I don't think it's Dor. And also, I think it's all about values and how do we get back from such a distraction, like or I wouldn't even perturbation, not distraction, yes, disruption, which is great. It's a great opportunity to test our strengths, our anti-fragility, and as it was said here, bring us together. But for me, it didn't ring home when Dor apologized so much. I would have framed it differently, and this is what I did now. So Ernesto, with this, please, you already met the community in several instances. I do not know how many know you, but I just wanted, you can simply Google Ernesto van Peborgh, and you will find everything about him. And I hope you will read some of his books, but please, you have the word.
Thanks, Mihaela. Thank you so much. And thank you for you having me again. I was a fair frequent participant last year, but bandwidth got kind of squished. And I took your challenge, Mihaela, to think, what are the patterns and principles that should govern us? And I think that is the first question. I want to kind of step back and walk you through some of the thinking I've done during the last 20 years. For those of you that don't know me, I have 20 years of private equity experience in Wall Street with suspenders of bulls and bears, a pinstripe suit, and a yellow tie, destroying the world. And then I spent 20 years trying to repair it, creating online communities, very before blockchain came in. But my clients were Natura Cosméticos, is the owner of Avon and the Body Shop. They have a sales force of 3 million people. So we did an enormous amount of experiments there. I created the Coca-Cola Business School for mom and pop shops. Coca-Cola reaches 1 million mom and pop shops every week. We created an online community there. And I have a project now in Brazil called TACE that creates digital identities for employment. We have more than probably 3 million people right now taking courses and tests in order to create their identities for better employment. But I've been thinking throughout the years is we are an open system. Everything that we create is an open system that is forced to resilience and regeneration constantly. So every community that we create does not evolve in a linear sequence. So the question is, what are we governing and how that changes over time? So I would like to share some slides and take you through my thinking, because I think it's important to understand concept and framework. Are you seeing my screen yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm pitching is what is called Regen Designers. It's not a company. Regen Designers is aiming to become a DAO. So this doesn't seem to be working. Give me a second. The play.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why I called it rules
Okay.
for wiser crowds. Maybe we can extract some and put them in a DAO.
So what we are trying to create is a DAO. And I think the concept of philosophy of Taoism is with us. We all eventually will become DAOers. We will not be working in one place. We'll be switching our efforts and a commitment between different DAOs. And this is going to completely change the concept of employment in the world. Imagine if Apple and Microsoft were two DAOs, and you had these DAOers that could flow between the two, trying to find the emergence co-creation between both DAOs, instead of the competition between two companies. So this DAO, the idea that it has is designing commons. And let me take you through my line of thinking, because I think it's important to have this context and framework.
Yes, but you mentioned something there which I want to underline, and that is where you are coming from. This is how I call it. Yes, so when I engage in a collaboration, if I come from competition, okay, it's clear. Okay, the game is done. Yes, so I cannot do it. I cannot collaborate. Or I can collaborate and try to get information from the other person and gain everything in a very dirty way, which is not our business here. Yes. So principles for collaboration, this is what we are after, but also awareness about where are we coming from, because obviously everybody is seeking their dreams to come to fruition. But the means and where we are coming from which paradigm, is very important. So I just wanted to underline this.
Exactly. Here I'm inviting anybody that wants to be part of the creation of a DAO, because eventually we'll all be part of these flow between DAOs, right? So we'll have your Cardano DAO, or even Cardano will have several DAOs, but we'll have
it already does, and these people here are now designing many and envisioning a lot of them, just so you know. We know about that.
Okay, so this is not an invitation or selling a project. It's part of something that could complement this. So I think it's important to understand where we are right now. We are in a decade that is reaching a stampede of adjacent possible of AI technology, planetary boundaries, system collapse in an exponential way. And this is changing everything at this time. So we are experiencing this emergence of a new anthropological space that is of knowledge of collective intelligence, where the future of our systems and economic networks will depend on our capacity of rapid acquisition of knowledge, the development of collective intelligence, and the development of new decentralized self-governed systems. And my work is based on three premises: that the human economy is a living system, that there are patterns and principles that describe how living systems work and sustain themselves. Sustainability is the outcome of a regenerative process. And for our human economy and new systems to prosper and be sustainable in the long run, the system needs to be designed along these patterns and principles of living systems, the patterns and principles of living systems of life. So let's look at a hive as a complex system, right? The single, a bee operates on a memory of 6 days. The hive has a memory, collective memory of 3 months that is twice the life of a bee, right? So when, and this is an emergent. This is a collective emergent process of knowledge and memory that transcends the life of the bees. So if there's a bee that finds an alfalfa plant 200 meters to the northeast and comes back and does this simple dance, this knowledge is retained double the times of the bees that experience that. So this makes me ask two questions. What kind of ledger do bees manage in order to store that data? Where is that data stored? And second, what are the patterns and principles that govern the decentralized autonomous systems of the hive? The decision is not taken by a queen. The decision is taken collectively, and they have some rules or principles and some ledger of knowledge that permit this decentralized autonomous system to prosper. And here I want to introduce a person that I knew well. I met her in 2010. Elinor Ostrom was Nobel laureate in economics, not being an economist. And I met her in a train in Stockholm for a 4-hour ride to a small town in Tallberg, where we were both presenting our ideas. And she was given the Nobel Award because she resolved in some way the tragedy of the commons and find some patterns and principles that govern commons that have sustained themselves during millennia. Paddy fields, fisheries, grasslands, etc. But in her last work, she was actually in this train being interviewed in confronted seats in front of me with a journalist, and she was speaking about her last work, that is Understanding Knowledge as a Commons. And what she expressed is that knowledge is the emergent property of a healthy socio-economic system. And I think here we have the possibility of building these knowledge commons from that knowledge is the emergence of the rules and patterns that can govern this decentralized autonomous system. So I think we need to differentiate between community. You have the Cardano community, right? A community is a group of people sharing or having certain attitudes and interests in common, and a commons. A commons is a self-organized system by which community manage resources. The commons is not
and I have to tell you, Ernesto, yes, just to put things on track for us here, we have a commons which we are managing through our voting, and this is the Cardano treasury. It is a very precious commons. It is all the wealth that is being created by this community, which you are addressing right now, through their work, through their sweat, through their imagination, through their hearts, proof of soul, anything,
yes,
you name it, and technical talent. So this is very critical for us to understand, and this is the point. Yes, can I manage the commons by one man, one vote? By if I have this skin in the game and I'm a fair person of this who belongs to this community, let's say I'm joining right now with whatever skills I have, and I have the best of intent, but will this community manage in the best possible way the treasury through a one man, one vote? That is a question which is
that is critical, and that is in the last line. You have a community, but a common is the combination of a community with a certain set of what you call rules, but it's also protocols, values, and norms devised by the community in order to manage that resource. And they need to be devised by the community. That is the work of Elinor Ostrom. And I think the concept of protocol is important to bring, because with the capacity that you have at a blockchain protocol, this creates enormous opportunities of emergence. So what Ostrom showed is that these rules arise from bottom up. They are created by the community to create a new type of institution, in this case, the DAO that you mentioned, that is sustainably and economically efficient, managed by this community. The community and the resource make up for the system. And is the shared relationship and commitment.
Okay, Ernesto, just to bring you home again, yes, and this is a fireside chat. We will listen to you. Yes, we are here to listen to all the slides. But there are questions which come, yes, and I would like to bring it home, as it says, yes, from the bees to us here, and it may be too early. Please bear with me. You have a lot of experience, but this is a question which I also have. So skin in the game. Sorry, guys, I chose a question which I also have. I'm human. So does the hive have the same challenges as we have in terms of different time zones, being consistently underrepresented, underparticipated, and underheard? Not only, I don't think it's only due to time zones. I think it's also due to human biases. So there are a lot of things which humans, maybe bees are smarter at collaboration. So my point is, yes, we can learn from bees, but I would also like, and maybe not right now, maybe at the end of your talk, us maybe to get and to go away with some concrete, at least hope that we can solve some of our concrete, clear problems which we have here, because we are doing it, Ernesto. And as you heard Dor saying, it hurts sometimes, and we all want, yes, we all have thick skin in the game. That's why we are here, and we all want to collaborate and do it right. But is there a chance for us to really emulate bees, or what? How can we do it better?
I think first, I think we need to understand what is happening at this moment in the world. I think that cryptography is a new language that is emerging that gives the possibility for new systems of organization. Every time humanity experienced complexity, we invented a new language in order to evolve. And that language co-evolved with technology and new systems of organization.
Okay, our system of organization, just to bring it home again, yes, is voting on proposals which will be funded from our treasury. We have a clear use case here, right?
Yes.
And we obviously, that was the reason of the pain. We do not agree on. We do not agree on how we vote, which is fine. This is democracy.
You don't agree on the result of the vote, or don't you agree on who is voting and why?
Yes,
why
on the result. On the result overall. Why? Because it games the system in a way in which, those with higher stake in the game, they are growing faster. It's like the winner takes all mechanism it starts to be. And the smaller ones, which, let's say the higher skin in the game is focused on technology, and the less skin, and not the less skin, the less represented are those focused on impact, on social impact and doing good in the world and so on. And as such, the technology grows.
Why do they have to be mutually exclusive?
Exactly. That's well, how can we do it not mutually exclusive if we don't do one man, one vote? I mean, if we do one man, one vote, it will be mutually exclusive. No? I mean, I have a pool of resources and then I vote.
Maybe not. Maybe there's a philosophy that states that certain pieces of technology will enable the greatest humanitarian impact.
Okay, then we bring it together as a purpose. Yes, like the purpose. Okay, that's exactly, that solves it. I agree. But let's say the majority don't care about doing good. They care about increasing their wallets. And how can I, that's their dream. Yeah, Lambos and wallets and big wallets. So then how do we solve that one? I mean, if we cannot converge on purpose, can we invent a mechanism? Or at least, Ernesto, from your experience, can you?
Well, if we're gonna
some guidance?
if we're gonna weigh like reduction of voting power to ADA, we really need to consider a very equal and proportional reduction in taxes paid to Treasury relevant to that reduction in voting power. Part of being a community is having a social construct. And we came here together under a certain set of rules, and we were told the rules were going to be one way. And a lot of people showed up and they put a lot of stake in the system and they took a lot of risk. Now, a lot of that's going to wash out when the market kind of takes over, and there's going to be some cycles, and we're going to see a lot of cool stuff with smart contract staking. And so the decentralization of the network is going to get really, really interesting in that regard. But the whole idea is to create new economic opportunity for everybody. And so early on, my philosophy is, and this is why I fight so hard for the technology component of it. My philosophy is that if we top load there, we're going to enable all these individual geo regions the tools they need to create economic opportunity for themselves. And that's it. We all want the same thing. The disagreement is how we get there.
Okay, so, creating economic opportunity is a great common goal. I think, everybody, at least for me, it's great. Yeah, give me the opportunity. I trust my talent that I'm gonna make the best of it. I prove myself along the years on that. I'm fine. So so then the next question is, how do we create that? How we do that? But I'd like to also move to another question, and I still am with you. It's perfect. That is a purpose. I took the note. But exploring new ways of decision-making process beyond voting. That's something also which I think we may consider, at least right now. I think maybe we can merge them together. I do not know how. I know we have a talented swarm here. so I just wanted to bring that factor in as well. Given the, all the pressures that we have, it's not only the market, but a lot of other pressures here, which were mentioned in the chat. The question, so there are two things here. How do we create economic opportunity for everyone who is here, for everyone in our community? And how can we find decision making which is effective, and it may not be one man, one vote? Okay, Ernesto, at last.
Sorry, but I have a different point of view. I think a commons is something you don't put together. If you put a group of rocks together, if you put a group of organs of people together, if you put together a group of chemicals, you don't get life. Commons is a living system. It's emergent. It's emergent from commitment. It's emergent for allurement. It's emergent of trust. It's emergent from common purpose. If you don't have the conditions in the container for the emergence of a commons, the commons doesn't happen. The community doesn't happen. If you get a bunch of people in a Zoom, you're not a community. You're a bunch of people in a Zoom listening to somebody talk. How do you construct a community? How do you construct a commons? And that needs a systemic view because it's an emergent. If you don't understand that you're a living system organism, a collective living system organism that needs some patterns and principles in order to work in a regenerative, resilient, and emergent way, you will get nowhere. You won't be a commons, you won't be a community. You're a bunch of people that have some economic interests where all the egos and the human misery appears. So how do
I feel like crying. Yes, because it's such an awakening in what you say. Yeah, obviously.
What are the rules that you have? What the actual rules of regeneration? What is your holistic view? What is your right relationship? How do you seek balance? How do you honor community and place? What is your empowered participation? What is the meaning of trust? Because you have a bunch of crypto something doesn't mean you trust each other. You have a trustful platform, but that doesn't mean a trustful relationship between you all. So we just say you have a commons. A commons is an emergent. It's not something you design in a room with like a bicycle. You get some pieces.
Okay, so let me stop you right there, because this word emergent and so on and so forth. So they are like academic terms, but not, they describe what we are. But so yes, so for now we are a community, right? And the commons is emerging around various attractors, or however you want to call them, catalysts. Now, every word is tainted because we use all of them. So how is this emergence happening? Let's say in this community, it's based on trust, and it already happened here. We have various, I don't want to call them factions, please find a better word, but we have a swarm, we have climate, We have, many others, technology circles, stakeholders,
We need to do a better job at communicating across factions, because look, I have a pretty good visibility.
Kyle, I hear you, but there were two
Let me
other
finish
hands.
what I'm saying, please.
Yeah,
All
I
I'm
do.
trying to say,
There are two hands which were raised before, you intervened. I will let you finish, but next time we will work, and I apologize. I should have said that from the start as a rule. Kyle, please go on. Yeah, it's just because there were those hands. And I did not mention that we will go in the order of the hands. I thought this is already known. That's okay? Then yes.
all I was, all I'm trying to say is that this room, what's in here and what's being discussed here, where it's reaching in the level of the Cardano community, like if you look at the Cardano logo, you see all these dots. What's happening right here is just one of those dots. And this discussion is big, and it's really big. And a lot of people came under a certain set of rules. And if we're going to engage this and sell some kind of reduction in voting power, it has to be done very carefully, because what's happening and being discussed in this room is not widely representative of what's happening broadly in the community. And I just wanted to say that.
That is crucial information, Kyle, and I will get back to you because I want to know more. I'm sure also Ernesto. But I would like also to give the opportunity to those who raise their hands. I think if Ernesto, if you agree that this may be a good opportunity for them,
please.
because I think it's their guardian. And I really did not notice who raised their hand first between Tom and Harry. So I leave it on you to decide who was first. Please step in.
Do you mind, Harry, if I go ahead? Yeah, so just a quick comment there, because what Ernesto was saying was really hitting home the idea that it's an emergent phenomenon, that we're not going to sit down and decide exactly the perfect set of rules that are going to contribute to the thriving of the community. And so I was under the impression, and I'd love for people to correct me if I'm wrong, I was under the impression that Project Catalyst and the way that Cardano makes decisions within the community, which is an example, and that one of the benefits of Cardano was that other native tokens that are created on it would be able to adopt the same sort of technology, and then they would have their own treasury system, and they would have their own ways of addressing this particular issue, and then they would compete within the Cardano community, and whatever worked best would bubble up to the top. So I guess I'm sort of like, I'm very interested by this conversation, and I'm very curious why the idea that because this sort of conversation would have worked, wouldn't make sense even before crypto. And I thought crypto was to solve this thing so that we wouldn't have to come up with these exactly how the community should work, that it would be an epiphenomenon. Am I wrong about that?
We are solving the governance of crypto communities. So of course the governance was before, crypto came after. So I think you are right on track here. Harry?
Right, Harry? Sorry, go ahead.
And yes, thank you for that. I like the connection earlier that you made, Mihaela, between do you want a Lambo or do you want the community to develop, or you want a wallet? So sometimes then it's about making better distinctions. And so in that space, and we put a proposal in for the SPOs, and the idea there is a lot of them are very tiny. And so they might have a cause, which is something they work to in a big space, but they also have their own purpose. And in their purpose then, as we said, we were starting to have some fun with it. So you've got guys out there who are Lambos and they want money. You've guys out there who are around being Nobos, and they want learning, they want gnosis. And you've got guys out there who are Kudos and they want respect. And you've got guys out there who, again, you can get really silly and you can have combos who are after community. And the idea about, and I think when Ernesto was talking about the DAO before, the technology has enabled this massive spread of all this complex adaptive systems. And in there, then sometimes you just have to take a step back, like with the bees, and start to understand there are different types of bees who have a different existence. and they have their own purpose. I think the thing tying it together, you mentioned before in the different words, was this thing about, okay, so you have a purpose or you have a worth, and that has a commercial side to it, which you can call wealth, and then it has a community or cultural side, which is the intent. And I think this community, and what we've loved about starting to be involved in it, is you might have a particular type of purpose for yourself, for your team, for your community. You might have a particular type of cause, but it all sits inside an umbrella of an intent. Now, for me, that's the positive side that matches the negative bit about how changing in technology can drag power into it. And because that's the other one, isn't it? You have a Rambo and they just want power. And
Yes,
that was really the bit I
yeah.
caught with it. That was the fantastic experience we've had since we've been lucky enough to be involved in your community. So thank you very much, everybody.
So I have something to say here, and maybe ask Ernesto as well. Not as well. I'm relying on you, Ernesto, on this one. So you know, as you mentioned here, yes, again, the Lambos, and I don't want to put it versus. Well, I mean, and I can just give myself as an example, but this is not true about me. Just want to let you know. So yeah, why not have a Lambo and also work for the good of the world? Yes, give my heart and soul and day and night to that. So I don't mind. Yes, economic opportunity overall. But the question is that possible for everyone? That's number one. Because of course, this has been an issue which is in the world, and can we solve it here? And on the other side, what comes to my mind now is also, I mean, maybe there's something different that we have here in the crypto communities, which is different than the social networks. I mean, why isn't that happening on Facebook? Why isn't emergent happening on Facebook, Ernesto? What are the ingredients which we have to be aware of to stir in order to enable that emergence and to happen, so we can become a commons and from a community of, you know, antagonistic factions. Let me exaggerate here a bit.
Yeah, I would like to state that emergence is invisible to those that collectively create the emergence. It's a property that is part of the whole and cannot be found in the parts. So the bees don't know that there's a hive mind, and the birds don't know they're a part of a flock. A flock is an overarching wing by which all of the birds are unaware of, that has this capacity of providing a 40% less resistance to the wind. There's this system of updrafting, but the flock collectively decides where it goes, where they're going to roost, where they're going to eat. And none of the birds has the leading in that. They don't have a leading role. It's an emergent property. So
okay, then is there any hope for us?
Yes. I would like to share 2 or 3 more slides that I think would be important, because we here...
And just before that, a question. So someone, do you want to intervene to what was discussed until now, or you want to wait until the slides are done? It's the choice is entirely yours. I'm sorry, maybe I see Simon. I do not know how to pronounce.
Simon,
you have
Simon
your
and Peter.
Simon is all right.
Okay, so Felix, please help me. You didn't help me at all. You should read the questions from people.
Because you run it great when you want to ask me questions.
Okay.
You're doing a great job, Mihaela. This is a very difficult challenge you have.
Yeah, so I think it was very interesting until now. And I just wanted to say, I feel like the one person, one vote is, I mean, like historically, clearly the winner, right? I mean, we've had people, kings and people who amassed, you know, wealth and then just ruled. And if we don't watch out, we're gonna have like a, you know, higher class, just like we have a little bit in America as well, where I mean, I'm not from America, and the same is true in Europe to a certain extent as well. So
No, that is exactly the concern. You are nailing exactly what I meant when I said, well, winner takes all, right? So this is a dynamic that that exactly. And I see,
yes, and this is the dynamic, because then one person is going to optimize for highest rewards, and the next person is going to lose out on that because the other person optimized, even though he was doing maybe the right thing. So we have to create a system where the right thing is optimized for the highest rewards.
yes, and I think this is also what at least it was the awakening for me, which Ernesto brought when he said, if this is happening when we are just a community of individuals, not a commons of a swarm, which is actually doing the same. When we don't form the wing on which everyone's dreams are flying, that's what's gonna happen. Then only the dreams of some of us are going to happen. And I think probably, Ernesto, you want to explain in your slides how to.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to explain something.
Mihaela, I'm not sure if you noticed, but Peter had his hand up, I think already before Shioman.
I'm happy to wait.
I'm sorry about that, but I would like still now, Peter, please, I would like Ernesto to I think this will be illuminated. And if not, Ernesto, you will be put at the wall.
Sure it will, because I want to acknowledge something.
No pressure.
We are all illiterate at this moment of what is emerging. We are the beast that don't know there's a hive mind that is emerging. And let me give you my idea why this is
because I thought, I want to know. I mean, God knows probably. That's the only one. Okay, please explain to us what's happening, and we are blind to it, but we will see it.
There's a work of Frederic Laloux that explains how organization. Are you seeing my screen? Because when I share it, I don't know if I'm sharing it.
Yeah, we see it.
Well, this is a work of Frederic Laloux that explains how human organizations evolve. We started with mafia, street gangs, tribes. Then we went to governments. We went to armies. Then we went to corporations. This is evolving. It evolves, and we are in the moment of seeing the new evolution of a new language and a new economic system and a new system of organization that is emergent, that we all are illiterate right now and don't understand because emergence is invisible. There's a work by Robert Logan that it was a disciple of Marshall McLuhan that speaks about the sixth language of civilization. And he explains the following. Every time that we encounter complexity, and you will all agree that we are encountering complexity right now, we create a new language. So when we came out of the savannah, we needed to start hunting big mammals, and we need coordination, like 4 words: right, left, run, now, etc. The only way that our technology, that were our spears, could be coordinated in order to hunt big mammals. In Sumeria, we started living in cities, and we created 2 additional languages, writing and math. These are Sumerian Tablets. What happened there is, in a very short period of time, the combination of 3 languages created a new organizational system that was the cities, but also a very huge quantum leap in innovation. We created the wheel, the sail, the architecture, the true arch, irrigation, the plow, maps, time, clock, medicine, everything in a very short period of time, because there was this new emergence of knowledge in a new system that was called cities. Then we have the evolution of science as the 4th language. And here this co-evolves with new organizational systems, the corporation, the armies, etc. Language as a computing, we started seeing, and the internet, we started seeing that before we saw the world in physics and chemistry as a way to see the world, now we have data science and algorithms to see the digital world. So something completely changed at that time. New systems of organization. Barnes and Nobles didn't understand Amazon. Blockbuster didn't understand Netflix. The Federal Reserve isn't understanding cryptocurrencies. But now, at this moment in time, I think what is emerging is the seventh language. And this is a new language, a new system of organization that none of us in this call understands the implications and the emergence of a new organizational system. What is happening right now is, in an exponential way, there's an evolution of consciousness and culture that is creating a new system that has different rules. And if we try from our reductionist way and old paradigm to create the rules to manage the system, we're going to fail. We need to understand the language on which this system runs in order to be able to design this new organizational system, not with a mindset of, are we going to vote one vote? We need to understand how this system is going to work before designing the rules. And that is an emergence. So what we need to understand is, from this emergence, is we are a community as a system. We define a system as a group of elements interconnected with a purpose. What is changing dramatically in an exponential way is the technological connectivity, the technological trust. We are beyond trust, right? Blockchain has assured us that this decentralization can run on a trustworthy platform. But what we're not looking at is that a community is made by trustful relationships, mutuality, purpose, commitment, and accountability. And that is what needs to emerge for us to understand that we have this emergence of knowledge, and that is how we can create a commons. But what you are bringing from the Cardano community is the other side of the story. You have the capacity of creating a knowledge ledger. You have the protocols that you're designing for this to run on. You have the knowledge of cryptography. You have the capacity of creating the DAOs. But now you need to understand what are trustful identities. What is your trustful identity of, you know who the person is? What are the tokens of trust or gifts that can be shared to go beyond one vote, one person? We can trust somebody to vote for us if we know that they have the sufficient knowledge and the merit in order to that to happen. And I think this is the conversation that we should be having from a systemic point of view and not a reductionist point of view.
Wow. I mean, I totally love it. From my side, yes, it's like, so where I was coming from now feels so reductionist, yes, like I'm like, okay, but that's great, yes, because indeed, yes, I mean, at least I had the good inspiration from all the experts which we have on our wise list. I chose you to teach me something, and of course, I'm sure that many of us are sharing that. So yes, Peter, your turn.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I hope it helped that you are following after all this boom presentation.
I absolutely love this conversation. It's very deep. I could listen to this all day long. Thank you, Ernesto. I agree 100%. I agree with what I understood you said, whether that's what you said or it's just what I understood, I don't know. But from what I'm gathering, I totally agree. Emergent phenomenon. There's so much that I'd like to say. I can't get to it. What I'm about to say, I could be in error. I'm trying to think at the same time that I'm hearing everyone. So just take it for what it is. I believe that the magnitude of what we don't know is so great that however smart we are, however deliberate we are with our planning, with our construction, it will be a shadow compared to what is actually true out there. We are subject to the truth, but like the bees, we are unaware of what the truth is, nor do we have the capacity to understand it. It's almost a spiritual notion. I almost feel like I have to bring up the concept of God in this, because whatever we do, we have to recognize that no matter how hard we try, the principles that govern us are so beyond what we can understand. And all we're trying to do is our best to get a little bit further, knowing for sure that we can never achieve a type of perfection, that the act of perfecting is the greatest thing that we can hope for. I believe that what we are of course, we have to try to govern ourselves. Of course, I mean, maybe I'm an anarchist, I don't know, but I don't want to live in a world where there are no rules. We have to establish rules and protocols. But I believe the best rules and the best game that we can establish, keeping in mind that every game we create, every system we create will get corrupted eventually, is to facilitate change. So change, flux, transformation has to occur. And what we can do, the rules that we want to set in place, are what allows change to occur the fastest. That's by increasing communication. So the communication between the cells in our body, the communication between the nodes on this planet, the people on this planet, the more we can facilitate communication, the faster that learning can occur, that experience can be shared. So we want to facilitate communication. Then there is facilitating change to allow change to occur. And there's something that I teach called leaving room for evil. We have to accept the thing that we look at within ourselves, that we go, everything would work but for this evil. Everything would work but for this problem. That evil is actually not an evil to be destroyed. It is the principle that we must stitch into what we create in order to create a game that works. So we go, oh, self-interest, that's the evil. No, self-interest is the principle by which we must honor. We have to honor that aspect. Like even God lets the devil live, because self-interest is what guides us on an individual basis. And it may be that when we follow self-interest, we lead ourselves to disaster and destruction. But what we know for sure is that people with bad intentions can end up, or who commit bad things can end up creating bad or good, right? People used to run away from surgeons because surgery was a very dangerous thing. It could cause a lot of harm. There's a lot of people who suffered in the past, but we benefit from their suffering. And there are, similarly, good can lead to good things and bad things. There are a lot of people that profess good intentions who generally are trying to do good that actually cause harm to our society. So whether you're bad, you can do bad things and good things. Whether you're good, you can do bad things and good things. What really matters is that we do more things. And what I'd like to add to this conversation for Catalyst, and again, I'm not saying that I'm right about this, it's just that I believe, I'm new to Catalyst, I'm new to this whole experience. I'm not trying to criticize you, and I feel like an outsider talking about this, so I don't want to step on anyone's toes. But I think that funding projects should happen so much faster, and we should care far less about how good a project is and how well it's funded and all the paperwork filled out, and just find a mechanism that funds as many things as we can as fast as possible so that we gain experience. Yes, there will be people who want to con us. Yes, there will be people who make mistakes. Yes, there will be problems within the system, but that will all contribute to our learning. So whatever rules we set in place, whatever protocols we care about, I think we should prioritize that communication flows, and that whatever mistakes occur, that we learn from those mistakes. That's where the communication comes in, and that we want to collapse time. The exponential age that we're existing in is going faster than we can even come up with. And whatever we decide now, in a year from now, 10 years from now, will be eclipsed by what we learn, what's there before.
Okay, I think this is again from God. You froze, Peter. You froze a bit.
I'm sorry.
So it may be my power of intent. Don't blame me if you want. But you sounded to you know, a bit more like, really like God. So this is great, and all these ideas are amazing. Yes, totally. I am on board. I am on board. I want it funded faster. Definitely, yes. This is what I want also for the grants which I submit to the government, you know, as an academic. Yes, fund it faster. I mean, make a decision in a way or another, and we are getting there. The thing is that the rules, now what I hear from Ernesto, we are not making the rules. The rules will emerge from this kind of interaction. So Ernesto, please let me know what comes to mind in this context. Now, on the other side, I want also, with regard to your last slide, I really loved it. For me, it's like a really an awakening. I think we can all learn a lot from it. And maybe when you speak now, do you mind sharing the last slide as well? When you, maybe whatever comes to mind in response to to Peter's amazingly passionate and insightful comments.
This is how it co-evolves. I think the commons is an emergent, but now we have the technology of this new language and new system of organization that Elinor Ostrom and nobody had until recently. The capacity of creating decentralized autonomous organizations and creating through tokenization, and this is an invention, but we can create tokens of trust that we can give and take.
Ernesto, let me stop you, please, politely. I just wanted to make a point here, and I wanted to make it when you present it.
Okay.
So I see this, whatever tokens, however you call them, I see them as a mechanism, bits and pieces for this mechanism that can enable us to actually self-govern. And rightfully, however you want to call it, they can enable us to self-govern. We do not have this mechanism. Maybe we do. Maybe Felix, correct me, please, or anyone else here. But tokens of trust, proof of merit. This, of course, this is something which is I'm passionate about, and Charles and so on and so forth. Proof of knowledge. I think if we sort this out, this will bring in the competency for a particular, let's say, I can vote there because I can prove knowledge in that area. So many things can be enabled by such mechanisms. So maybe we do not even need the rules if we can deploy/institute those mechanisms. So instead of rules, we can leave the dynamics of the community interactions with those mechanisms to self-regulate the community itself, and then by this to sort out many of the things. This is what I see here as, for me, the beacon of hope in all, I think, also maybe solving many of our differences. And an answer to what Felix was asking is this, I mean, can we make decisions in other ways than through straight voting or whatever? Yes, we know the Ostrom. We know, maybe.
The Ostrom. What Ostrom says is the rules are created by the community, but if you don't have the underlying principles and patterns for that to be created, you won't be able to create the rules. If you don't
where do we get the principles from? This is my question. My burning question.
I move with the patterns and principles of living systems. I think the patterns and principles of living systems are the DNA that life has used to evolve and be sustainable. So my work is based on these 8 principles of regeneration vitality that are the patterns and principles that living systems use in order to be resilient and regenerative and create emergence.
You have these principles in a book or somewhere. Can you put them on a slide or show them to us?
Yes, I put them in the slide. If you look at the patterns and principles of living systems and you look at the patterns and principles of open source, there's a very clear similarity. Search of holistic wealth, in right relationship, innovative, adaptive, and responsive, empowered participation, honor community in place, edge effect abundance that gives resilient, robust circulation, and seeking balance. If you look at the 8 principles that you can find in any Google search of how open source, Tim Berners-Lee, Paul Baran.
We have experts here. It's like, yes. I mean, this is what we do, right? So
I know, but if you look at those principles, it's empowered participation is similar to inclusive meritocracy, community and collaboration. So these are the principles of the initial internet that are aligned with the patterns and principles of life. So what is happening in this emergence of this new language and new organizational system that is triggering new consciousness, that new consciousness is looking to see what can be developed as patterns and principles of regeneration in order to be sustainable. Our new level of consciousness and awareness has understood that the old paradigm of competition and extractiveness and of ego doesn't work. So it's looking for new patterns and principles. And when it discovers, we collectively discover that the patterns and principles of life and regenerative vitality are those that maintain a regenerative process of which the outcome is sustainability. and that they are very, very close on overlapping with the patterns and principles of open source. That is actually how blockchain came into existence. Now we have the combination of technology and the DNA of life. And that is how we enter into a regenerative paradigm that makes ours and a species sustainable.
I love the principles. Philip, thank you. Thank you. I mean, I didn't know you had them, but thank you. I feel saved somehow by these principles. Okay, now at least I have something to hold to my heart. It's like a teddy bear. There is hope. I'm not lost. I have the principles. This is great.
Hello,
Okay, Philip,
Dr. M and Ernesto. Thank you for the principles. It's just maybe, please. I joined recently, so if I missed something, just tell me and I'll shut up. But please, can you maybe go a bit more to the operational level, right? Because I don't know. At least for me, these principles are not gonna say self-evident, but we in the in this community, we kind of, I would say, we understand them. But let's say when you say inclusive meritocracy, what does that mean in operational sense? What does that mean for me today, tomorrow, in the next week? What should I do
I will
today?
take that right now, Philip. So,
Sure.
so what I mean, what I understand by it is, okay, so I prove myself in the process that I am trustworthy to deal with a certain topic. Let's say, I don't want to call it governance. Yes, my specialty is distributed intelligence systems. I did prove myself as an academic and so on and so forth. But interacting with the community, interacting with the scientific community, I did prove myself through those interactions, through reviews by peers, through peer acknowledgement. This is meritocracy. But I do not know. I mean, if inclusive means something different.
I agree with you, Dr. M, and I believe that in technical systems like the one that you said, it's much more straightforward. Correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say in open source, it's, you have GitHub, you make pull requests, but let's say when you have a governance system where your reputation sometimes heavily relies on someone else's opinion, personal opinion of you, and you may prove to someone that you have merit in a way that some other people just do not think at all that you have merit, right? So in technical systems, like if you have, let's say, I'm gonna hyper simplify it, but like if you have a task, you say you're gonna do a task, you do a task, whether it's a piece of software, hardware, whatever. Okay, there are different ways to do it, but let's say if it works in the end, okay, there is merit, she did it, he did it, great. But in social systems, when you make a commitment that is kind of open-ended and someone can say, oh yeah, she, they did a great job. Someone else said, no, they messed it up completely, right? So, and it a lot of times depends on, hey, I like that person, so I'm cheering for them.
Popularity contest. I agree. And that's a big issue which you bring up, Philip. Ernesto, to the rescue. Do you have any suggestions? How would we deal with that? And what maybe this inclusive point is an answer? I don't know. And Simon, you are next.
Felix, do you want to have a shot at it?
Yes, you. Sorry, Felix.
In open software, I think we have examples that have proved the possibility of co-creation. I think that is not in doubt. Even if they went through popularity contests, even if they went through the misery of humanity relationships, the emergence of open software and open innovation has proven that the collective mind can handle individual constraints.
So basically you're saying we need to live with it. We need to accept it as a part of life. And if someone falls off, they fall off, and that's it. We iterate forward.
And what is inclusive? Inclusive means that everybody can play, right? That's all, Ernesto, or something else.
Yeah, you have weeds in any vegetable ecosystem. There's always weeds. A healthy ecosystem takes care of the weeds, but the weeds are there. So it's
and that mechanism with the tokens of trust and so on, I think that is coming to the rescue in such
If
instances.
if the ecosystem is healthy, it takes care of all the eventualities that happen there. And that is the capacity of innovation and resilience and responsiveness to what happens.
Simon.
Hi. I wanted to draw on some of the conversation we were having. Ernesto talked about the birds and the bees earlier, and it's just dawned on me this year. I forgot to put my bird feeders out, and I put them out last week. And what I'm seeing is the way birds decide to come to an area is based on whether resources are available. So because I put my bird feeder out, first couple of days there was 1 or 2 birds, and now the other birds have seen them moving in, and now I've got a whole tree full of birds again. So I'm looking at that, and that's probably applicable to the bees as well. You know, they move to where the food is. And I'm thinking, does that same process apply to an ecosystem like Cardano, where there are resources available now? There's a big treasury there. There's more and more people building dApps and all the stuff that's going on. So other people see that and they start getting attracted to the ecosystem. So it seems there's sort of a parallel there. The difference that we've got is as humans, we've got politics and reputation to stack on top of that, which can drive people away if they're not felt valued or other people are challenging them too often. I don't think I've got a solution to that. It's just an observation I wanted to throw into the conversation.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. For us, the bird feeder is, of course, the treasury. And the point is now, how do the birds reconcile in who eats more or less? And anyway, that's a part of mine. But you know, this, what you're saying there kind of brought me to somehow, I don't know if that's what you wanted to mention, Felix, but this is like this proof of soul. I mean, it's like I give more than I take. And I'm gonna, you know, contribute more than I'm gonna eat from that. And I think that can catalyze positive action by itself. I don't want to give you the word, Felix, because you did not raise the hand, but I just wanted to mention that it came to mind in this context. So the next is Tom, and then I do not know, Sar. Okay, Sariel, you decide. I'm sorry if I not pronounce it correctly.
I find this all very fascinating, and I'm curious what a rhetorical question, what people will leave this conversation with, because I've started participating in these breakout rooms and in Catalyst, not because I care. I mean, I really don't care about the governance of it. Like, as long as, in the same way that I don't really care about the government in my country, let them do what they want to do. People with guns will do what people with guns have. People with money will do what people with money have. All I really care about is, can I provide value with whoever I'm interacting with, and can I receive value from that? Which is sort of like the B
that's
idea
proof
from
of
Ernesto.
soul to me.
Right.
That's what I think. That's it.
Well, in the B example, the B is not worried about the construct of their anything other than what they're self-interested in. And like what my brother Peter was saying, is like what works for the evil guy should work for the good guy. And to me, it seems sort of like what I want to.
But you said something. It's not because it's your. I think there's a confusion that you are making there, and it's important, yes, to stress that, because you said I provide value. So, you know, I don't care if I provide value in a governance context, or if I can contribute, I will. And I think this is the key to actually positive interaction and this emergence, which we are seeking here. That's different than self-interest and I don't care. To me, this is very different. If you mean the same.
I'm not trying to provide value to a system. I'm trying to provide value with the person that I'm interacting with. And if that person I'm interacting with happens to be part of whatever system, great. And so when I'm voting for projects on Catalyst, I don't, what I care about is that person that, I don't care if I'm voting for a thing that is going to help someone get a Lambo, or a thing that might help plant trees somewhere. Like, I don't really care about that. It feels good to me to vote for certain things, and so that's why I do it. It feels good for me to interact with someone who proposed something afterwards, to say, oh, I voted for you, so we have something to say in the conversation. That's my way of introducing myself to them. Like, I don't really... I didn't know there was any governance, any voting happening in Catalyst for 2 years. I was involved with Cardano. I had no idea any of this stuff was even happening. And the value for this conversation isn't that I think we're all going to go off and make changes to the governance. The value is that in our conversation might change our behavior in just slight a way, that we might make decisions that we didn't know was valuable to us before, that's a little bit more valuable to us now. That's it. Because we're not voting now, we're not coming to a decision, we're not changing everything.
Yeah, I
we're
hear
just
it
changing
all.
ourselves slightly.
Let me tell you something here. Yes, I am with you. The thing is that, and this is something which I meant to address with the rules for wiser crowds. So the point is that, asking ourselves why we are here, even if you say that I don't care. I started by positing a truth, which is a truth for myself, in which I said, no one can perceive the world except through the means of an ethical framework. You have it somewhere incorporated in you. I do not know what it is. You maybe are not aware of it. And we are not aware of it. This is a problem with our education system. We are not educated to even become aware of our values. So we are confused and don't know why we are doing what we are doing. This is the first thing I ask myself every morning. Yes, it's like, what am I going to do now, and why? Why am I going to do that and not be on the beach and sip margarita every day? And why is Charles doing what he's doing? Because, by the way, he doesn't have to work, and a lot of other stuff, right? So I think this is important, yes, to bring again to the fore. This is it, to me. This is the drive, and actually maybe the clue in why you said that I want to contribute to something. Maybe it is an inner drive of our self-fulfillment, Maslow pyramid, call it whatever you want, but self-actualization, self-realization, meta-human, whatever. But you are there to contribute, and you said it gives you joy to vote, right? For certain things. It's a drive. You are doing it, and you are here with us. And I think this is kind of the clue. But Ernesto, please, and then we will have Sariel. It sounds like Ariel. It's like a magic thing. I love the name. Okay, and apologies for my comments.
Sorry.
Okay. So you are after Ernesto, if he has something to say here, because he's our guest today.
No, please go ahead. Any questions? I think.
Well, actually, it's interesting because my question has to do with ethics, which is where you were just going. Because personally, I've given this some thought, in terms of emergent properties, and I agree about the beehive, but I'm not so sure when it comes to minds that analogy applies. I'm not sure if a bee is equivalent to a human mind. I mean, I think there's evidence too that human minds are aware of paradigm shifts. There are visionaries and prophets, all throughout history who can see way far, into the future, and often will identify future events and trends. So, I mean, there's evidence that goes against the fact that we don't know what the emergent mind is doing. I don't think that is necessarily true, and I think there's a serious ethical question in regard to this. In fact, in terms of if we don't know what the hive mind is doing, how can we be held accountable for anything in terms of ethics? And so that's a major flaw in the hive mind theory, not the theory of ethics, in my opinion, because I think we know intuitively we have ethical, like a conscience. In fact, I think that's really the source of ethics personally. So that's really my question, that I think we need to, I agree that there is a hive mind phenomenon, but I think that we also need to maintain a sense of responsibility and understanding the extent of the hive mind versus our responsibility within it, and to direct it and perhaps get ahead of it, in some ways. And I think that's what we're trying to do with our technology here, is we're trying to get on top of that hive mind and really give it some direction and structure. So
Yes,
That's my
I'm with you.
observation.
Yes, no, totally. And to what you mentioned there, you know, I mean, and I quote others. Yes, I quote giants here. So Jordan Peterson said and wrote that we are all born with the compass of justice. Yes, we have it, and maybe even if we're not aware, I feel it in my stomach when something is right or wrong, and I also do when I do something wrong. And I'm aware it's wrong, even if, you know, let's say my boss is telling me to do it and I have to do it. Otherwise, you know, I'm not going to get my salary. I know that. I've been there. So, but
I mean, it is contextual too. A lot of the time, these things are contextual. It's more complicated than just simple black and white. But yeah,
yes,
for sure.
yes. And then there's another thing, where the accountability factor comes into the picture. Another giant said, and that is Nassim Taleb again. So he said that freedom is a scale. Freedom is a scale, right? And what does that mean? It means that I own my actions. I own my actions. And that scale, you know, it's kind of what is right or wrong. And what are the consequences from there? So, of course,
and what about our actions when we influence others? We own those actions as well. When we're creating influence, we need to be conscious of that and aware that we're not just in a vacuum ourselves.
It's not as simple. I agree. I agree. Ernesto, any words of wisdom, and then we go with James.
I think we started with a word of intention, and there was a lot of remarks around purpose. I think that intention is at the core of purpose. If we ourselves do not put into everything we do our purest intention, there is no commons that is going to rise. That I think we need to define what the rules are, but I think it all comes back to the core of our purest intention. And that is something that we need to find out in our own personal journey.
To the core of the proof of soul. Let's listen to James. I think I'm coming back to this proof of soul.
If I may just interrupt real quickly, it seems like somebody enacted like closure of all the breakout rooms, and it will close in 30 seconds. And I think we'll need to reconvene back, so there will be interruption. Nice. But I think Felix is going to help us to recreate the breakout rooms so we can pop right back in. So sorry for that. Okay. We don't know where that happened.
Thank you. So you are next, James, as soon as we return then, because it won't do it justice, 20 seconds and so on and so forth. So we
close one of the breakout rooms with a big red button.
I was making a brilliant point.
So Felix will help us to reopen the breakout rooms so that we can get right back in. Apologies.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I thought only Twitter Spaces rugged. I didn't realize.
we were the OG ruggers.
Let's just combine all of them.
Yeah.
Just a reminder to stretch.
Maybe we needed a break. Yes, exactly. Fill our water glasses.
Yeah, that's a good break.
We needed to reconnect and come back and have a good laugh, travel through space.
I'm gonna fill my water bottle.
This doesn't happen in real life meetings.
No, for real. This is exciting. Yeah. This is custom for us.
Mixer.
It's been very interesting because I've been jumping between the rooms, and it seems like all the rooms have been kind of touching the same topics. You've been talking about inclusiveness, all of you, but in different forms. And it's very interesting to hear from the different point of views. I was listening into Door, and they were talking about, the staking and how to get people inclusive in that. And then you walk into the next room and about the women, how to get them inclusive. And each room you go into are talking about inclusiveness, but in different forms. So it's been very, very interesting.
Beautiful insight. Thank you, Eric. Just a heads up, rooms are again open. So if you stretch your legs, spread your arms, get a fresh sip of whatever you needed to reshuffle next to your computer, feel free to jump right back in, and apologies for the interruption.
Oh yeah. You guys are cool. See ya.
You saw the one very day we didn't mention to the co-host. Co-host, please don't push the wrong button. Okay, but Mihaela, rooms are open already, so you can jump back.
That's it. That's the end. That's the end. You guys, we're done.
No, we are not done, sorry. It's going on. There was just a problem with the rooms, but we are.
Oh, okay.
I will send you in the room, back in the room.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I'm really passionate.
Sorry.
Totally agreed. Totally agreed. Sorry, maybe you were not talking to me, but I'm with you 100%, and I openly declare it. Yes.
Well, no, and I get it. And when I hear the word rules, I mean, Cardano's permissionless. I didn't ask permission to come here and help innovate. And, you know, I love everybody here and everybody that shows up. And I think we need to
But
keep
you
that
came
here.
to the rules session. What can I say? Thank you.
You got to
Thank
know
you
the
for
rules to break them. You know, that's finesse, right?
I mean, I think I can compete with anyone here as one who hates the rules most. And people who know me know that. So yes, my expertise is rule breaker. So yes, I'm. I put that there, yes, just for us as a means of discussion. I think we had. If you can raise your hand again.
Was James?
James, yes. Okay, James, please.
And then Robert. Oh, two great.
Thank
great
you,
inputs.
Felix.
Thanks, y'all. And yeah, I don't know if Sariel's back, but it was really resonating with me, just this idea of being out in front of everything. And I also heard her talking about, you know, second order effects, right? We don't know what the impact of starting this or that kind of work is. But I know that people who have been in Catalyst for a long time, we're not good enough yet at catching people up on what's going on. So Tom, on behalf of everybody, I'm really sorry you didn't find out about this till now. And it makes me think, one thing that maybe people don't know about Catalyst is that this is governance testnet right now, and not all the funds are on the table, which for builders has led to a scarcity issue, right? That makes the arguments a bit more heated, because there are not enough resources to go around to fund all the work that all of us want to do right now. But that's also a really good thing, because we wouldn't want there to be $1 billion on the table and not know what the rules are yet, right? That would be a much bigger problem. So we're in the testnet phase. And just to put things in perspective, Fund 7 voting is happening right now. Fund 7 is a 3-month process, okay? And there's a total of $16 million on the line right now. Okay, $16 million for a 3-month process. Just for perspective, the shared treasury that we are learning how to govern right now has grown by more than 100 million ADA over the course of the 3 months it takes to do this round. Okay, so not only are we talking about just a tiny fraction of all of the available funds that eventually need to be governed, but we're also talking about just whatever, like 16% or so of just the amount the Treasury has grown by in this time. So there are vastly higher amounts of money that we need to learn how to govern along the way. And we're doing it right now. And so to Tom and to other folks, like, yeah, in terms of next steps, we have to get better at sharing what's going on here. And we also just have to understand that, hey, like, we have to learn how to use this system together with these funds.
Right. And before we always give the word to someone else, I will ask Ernesto, yes, just so you know, because he's our guest. So if Ernesto has something to say, let us know, Ernesto. If not, we're going to move to the next question. That's
move
important.
to the next one. No, it's okay.
Okay.
Please move to the next one.
Okay, so I think Robert, that's what you said, Felix. Okay.
Yeah, Morena. I just decided to put my hand up because in response to what Carl said, what I would really like to call out is that there's rules everywhere. There's rules everywhere in this system. And you've either got normative rules or you've got explicit rules. In the case of the Cardano system, we've got a bunch of very explicit rules which govern the network itself, including the way in which protocols upgrades occur and those sort of things, up to the far more normative sort of rules which we're discussing largely at the moment. So to bring back to what Ernesto was sort of saying was that around the work of Eleanor Ostrom, it's important that the rules are emergent from the bottom up and that they're polycentric, that there's basically a whole lot of them. I'm a super big fan of Eleanor's work for many years, and I encourage everyone to sort of dig into it beyond just the 8 principles. There's a lot more to what she's actually talked about. But the point here is that the rules emerge from the bottom up, and that there's a way to actually change the rules. Okay, and that it's the community that is deciding how those rules change and evolve over time. Even though a lot of people like to think about free markets as like free choice, in fact, markets are incredibly regulated systems. They're full of rules. What they are is basically you can choose to participate or not. All right, and participate in that the system that's evolved and the set of rules that you're working in. So one of the key things that Ostrom's work did was basically said that the dichotomy between the market and the bureaucracy, or the hierarchy, so to speak, does not exist. There's actually a middle ground, which is the network. Okay, it's a market for rules. Okay, that's a key thing here, is that we can have a lot of different set of rules that are done by the participants and they merge over time, and we form a polycentric network. One of the key things about the technology that we've got in front of us, the Cardano or blockchains in general, are that they are an institutional technology. Institutions here are sets of rules that enable humans to cooperate and coordinate their activities. Right? This is a big thing that a lot of people get lost in with the blockchain, because so much of it is focused just on tokens and the token flipping models, where in fact what we've got in front of us is a technology that helps us scale coordination and collaboration more broadly. Beyond just sort of what the markets or hierarchies enable us to do. But it also, I just wanted to touch on another point here that was raised up earlier, is that a lot of people are just interested in the speculation component. So there's a broader question around how do you actually enable speculation for good? All right. So what tools or devices can you use to enhance or leverage speculation for the purposes of good? This is very similar to what Ernesto was talking about in terms of the notion of energy, that birds flock because it reduces air resistance, right? Don't fight speculation, figure out how to enhance it and use it and leverage it for the purposes that whatever we define good as, because ultimately that's an emergent property in its own right. And we have within the system, there's 2 layers of Cardano. There's effectively the bookkeeping layer, which is the ledger, and the second layer is all the smart contract sort of work that enables us to coordinate or establish sets of rules, explicit sets of rules to help us coordinate. Okay, so bringing those sort of core principles together, we should be able to achieve a lot of interesting things. So largely what I'll just finish up is don't ignore markets. There's been a lot of discussion about how do we make decisions through voting. Markets are a distributed, decentralized computational system. Don't ignore them.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm smitten with your, I love all of them equally. This is just to say before, but this was, I mean, brilliant. Yes, thank you so much. I don't know, to me, if it comes to proof of merit, you got it for governance of Cardano. I want to learn from you more. And I hope we can have a conversation, a deep conversation about all the issues which you mentioned here. We can have it now, but now, you know, I'd like each of us to tell their opinions. And I think what you mentioned there, to paraphrase Kyle, sorry, is humongous problems. Like each of them, like really would require weeks, years, months, maybe of conversation and writing and thinking. But there's a lot which we can use already. Yes, as
yeah, I just
guiding
remembered also,
light, I would say,
yeah,
from all what you said there.
Yeah, I just remembered, I should point out that Alan Ostrom won the Nobel Prize in conjunction with another institutional economist known as Oliver Williamson. And his work is really, really important around using market systems for governance purposes. So I would have a good look at his sort of work as well. They're all related.
Can I ask you something very selfish, shameless plug? If you can you write to me on LinkedIn? I'd like to have conversations with you, and of course, everybody else, if you want to. But I really, selfishly, I want to learn more from. Thank you. Wow.
I've raised the point in the chat.
Great, thank you, Ernesto. I think you must have a reply to this. He threw the glove.
Yeah. I was mute. I like how this conversation is going, and I think there is a trustful space. But again, I think the focus should be more on creating the conditions for emergence of commons, because the conditions are what are going to create the possibility of creating rules that have not been invented yet, or that we have to relearn because we had in the past, right? But we forgot them. There have been communities that have been real systems of humanity, and I think we've lost our humanity during the last 2 centuries. And I think we need to go back and understand what are these patterns and principles. What does it mean to be human in this day and age? And I think we need to create the containers and conditions for that to emerge. And I think if we focus on the rules, I think it's a reductionist view to try to find a solution in the wrong place. The solution is in our heart, not in the rules that we need to impose on others.
The mechanism that enables the rules, I think that's what we are looking for. Not we are looking for, but you proposed with those proof of trust and so on, mechanisms that can bring to the fore values. That's how I hear it. So we have 3, and I do not know the order. Felix.
Ariel, then Sydney, then Dimitri.
Well, this is great because I want to talk about, I think one of the solutions to this problem has to do with education. And I was thinking about this in another chat group a week ago or so. Because when we're talking about rules and all of the established things that help us function, and then we're looking at innovating on the other hand. So we're looking at rules versus innovation, which is like the Hierophant versus the fool. So, you know, you've got sort of 2 totally different frames of reference. And if you want to move from one to the other, how do you do that? Well, it has to do with education, especially when it's in terms of large numbers of people like we're trying to reach. And I was saying that I like Hoskins' approach, where he has created a library where we can go and look at all the published material about Cardano that, you know, he's laid the foundation. And it's a self-directed learning kind of approach where rather than top down and people being taught the rules and all the system, people are given the resources and the opportunity to approach the subject from their own point of view, very much more a Montessori type approach, so that the learners are educating themselves, which is much more decentralized, and they may be able to innovate much more quickly, but also again having, and I'm voting a lot lately on the Catalyst, and I'm discovering there's some great ideas about having community advisories, pools of reference for people to go to for mentorship. I think these are great ideas, and let people self-direct their learning themselves and give them everything you can give them and just let them go. And I think this will have a different effect. I think the rules will be quickly turning over. People will ignore the rules in their innovation, and that's kind of exciting. But then again, like, we do need to sort of have that balance of the mentorship and guidance and re-reference to, you know, like a, what would you call it? Dialectic. So that's kind of my insight, but I really value self-directed learning because as a child, I was involved in a program and I really excelled at it. And then going back into the top down, I couldn't stand it, you know, and I really myself find self-directed learning a more comfortable place to be. So I wonder what you all think about that.
And I think, Sariel, that what you're saying there, I feel that we are doing it right here, and by bringing in experts like Ernesto, you know, and listening to them, but it's much more, of course, that has to be done. And yeah, definitely. I'm sure there are many opinions. They will raise their hands. Ernesto, do you have any comment on this one?
I'm in mute. My dog is barking. No, I said Sydney and Dimitri had their hands raised.
Okay. Sydney.
All right. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. There was a bunch of notes that I've taken during this conversation. It's been a really powerful conversation. There's just a few things that I wanted to throw out there, though. First of all, it seems like our communities are all different. You know, we all relate to each other in different ways. So this idea of one size fits all doesn't seem like it's a great idea. And I think that it's probably more of an opportunity for us to experiment to find out what works best in what communities. But like the idea that we're going to come up with something, and I know that we're talking specifically about Catalyst, but even in that context, there might be some ways to be creative there. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is that I'm of the mind, I know Ernesto, you mentioned this, you know, it may be things that we have forgotten. You know, I'm probably in that camp because I do believe that there are things that we have forgotten about how we relate as human beings. And like we're in tech right here, and I don't know who on this call is you know, practices in the human behavior domain, but there's been a lot of work done in that domain, and there are frameworks that exist today that we can use to coordinate human behavior. I mean, you have Myers-Briggs, you have the Enneagram, you have the Zodiac, you have Claire Graves' work with spiral dynamics, and you even have love languages. We're learning how to relate and communicate with each other better so that we can facilitate you know, communication towards a common goal. Also, I wanted to ask Ernesto, have you read the book Sacred Economics? And if so, do you have any thoughts on that? And I think that's pretty much
by
it.
Charles Eisenstein, right?
Yeah,
That's,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah. And I did put a message in the chat to continue this conversation, because I mean, this is amazing, you know, but I think there's an opportunity for us to, you know, push this a little bit forward with some more imaginative ideas about how we can, you know, solve the problem. It doesn't come across as governance to me. It more comes across as human coordination, you know, not something, you know, controlling something, but how we come together to realize the commons, the community and the commons that we hold, and to I guess, incentivize everybody to act proper in those commons. And then lastly, I'll just say there's a lot of work out there on game theory, and that's not something that I've heard us talking about here, is how we can employ game theory more to be able to solve some of these problems with human coordination.
And before Ernesto answers your question, I have to say, Sydney, that I am taking notes from all what you said there. And yes, there's a lot to be done and a lot of unexplored territory here. So yes, on my list I have, or yes, I know about all of them, but why didn't I think of applying it here? Of course, this is our project, and we can work together on behavioral frameworks, spiral dynamics, sacred economics, all those. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I follow Charles Eisenstein, and we had some conversations in the past. I think what the biggest gift that he gave is the concept of a gift in sacred economics, a gift economy. And I think in the design of blockchain protocols, what is the gifts that we can create as a gift economy? What is a gift that I can give you my trust as a gift, that I can give you a token of appreciation? If you and I said we forgot several things that we had as these
our humanity, yes,
relationship of trust. If you go back, the ostrich beads are found throughout Africa, that different communities and different tribes exchange those ostrich beads in a question of trust. So if you had that ostrich bead around your neck, it was a symbol that you were trusted by somebody in the past and you were trustful. So how can we bring these old beads, or even the wampums that we find in the east of the United States? They used to have these exchange. The first coin that was minted in the US was a wampum, that is a shell that the early Americans or the Native Americans used as an exchange of trust. So how do we create a gift economy of trust with these blockchain beads, these tokens? How can we go back to the tokenization that created the trust between different ethnic groups throughout the world?
And now, you know, because you, I think I had another illumination now, another aha moment. I see your token, I'm calling them your tokens from your last slide, the trust tokens and so on, because for me, yeah, the merit tokens, I see them as a means to stir the swarm, you know, and that is not control, it's not governance, it's stirring. Yes, how does that wing move and fly and collaborate? And I think I will be thinking deeply about that, the mechanism or design for such tokens. And I'm sure we are all, yeah. Felix, I do not know. I may submit proposals. I think we will do it together. It's amazing. I'm getting so inspired here. Okay, Dimitri, and thank you all for bearing with my enthusiasm here. It's like, I know, I'm spilling over.
First of all, apologies for the sound of my ceiling fan because I'm here in Sri Lanka. So if it's too loud, I can't do anything about it. So just want to say it's about 2:15 a.m. here, but I wanted to participate in this conversation, which is why I joined after midnight. I want to share a couple of things. I kept silent all this time just to see. I've been putting all my thoughts in the chat. I wanted to see whether I was heard through my being what I put in the chat. And generally, what I put in the chat was not really responded to in the conversation. So I wanted to now speak out because it was kind of an experiment to keep silent and see whether it will be picked up, but it wasn't. Because the voices that are louder are the voices that were heard. My voice was soft in the chat, so to speak. It was not heard. So now 2.5 hours later, when I really should be asleep, I want to open my mouth now a bit louder and say what I wanted to say. Okay, so that was kind of a social experiment, and essentially this group failed. because I wasn't heard. So now I'm going to speak. Now, number one, we are talking about the idea of the collective and the swarm and the hive mind, right? First of all, if this is actually going to move from an academic intellectual conversation into something practical, from my perspective, one of the most practical things is to bring this sort of illuminating conversation to a time frame where more people can participate. Yes, Felix, I agree with you. There are 3 or 4 other town halls, including the South Asian one, which I'm heading on Tuesdays at 1300, but it doesn't have the same level of participation, possibly because of this whole time zone issue. So I do challenge whoever is involved to see whether at least once every other week we can bring this particular one to a more equitable time zone so that more of the Asian crowd can join. That's the one side. But I'm saying that in order for real governance to happen, all the groups should be able to talk at one time, not where we have multiple discussions going on, which really don't have the same level of participation, conversation, or decision making. The collaborations don't happen because the people aren't there. If you see, there is no one here from South Asia other than me. Why? Because people are asleep. So that's another thing. The third thing is, do I really want to join a collective hive mind, or do I want to vote on the basis of my personal conscience? I would go with the latter because that's always the safest way. Regardless of whatever is said to the benefit of hive minds, it's always been where the collective mind often gravitates towards atrocities, misery, destruction, and general shit for most people who are below a certain threshold of wealth or power. That's on that. Let me see. We were talking about equity. So I brought up the point as to how most people on this call are likely to be in air-conditioned or heated houses, which are run by coal and nuclear power plants, where the nuclear waste itself gets dumped in somebody's ocean, probably ours, because it's not going to be dumped in the Atlantic or the Pacific close to the USA. So South Asia and the Indian Ocean will get that nuclear waste. These are inequities. I am not blaming any of you all for it, obviously, right? But the point is, your countries perpetuate it, and we sit here and talk about equity and rise of consciousness and all these great ideas. But the reality is, you are living in that situation right now, and I am living in this situation right now. So what's the point of all this talk if you all are still sitting in the same air-conditioned houses? You still feel good about driving the electric car, but remember, the electric car is also powered by power coming from a coal plant or a nuclear plant for the better part of in your country. Possibly a certain fraction on wind and solar, but predominantly coal or nuclear. So this is reality. We can talk all we like, and for me, talking is at a cost of sleep in this case, but talk will not move beyond that unless at this stage, the couple of 100,000 people here on Cardano are willing to do something about it. I also brought up in this conversation about water power. I was stunned to see that the stake pools or whoever has 100,000 ADA has more power than me who has 500 ADA. That's not right. That is a basic rule that has been established. One person, one vote, not voting power. That again means the rich have more power. So what's the point of talking about equity and fairness and rise of consciousness and all this when the entire principle of voting on projects is based on the rich guys with more ADA have more power than the guy like me with 500 ADA. And believe me, that 500 ADA came by doing CA work. I had 0 ADA before I did the CA work in Fund 6. So these are just a couple of points. I am challenging this entire group once in 2 weeks to move this 3 hours before, so that really the South Asians, the East Asians can participate in this conversation. If you all can do that, that's a damn good start. Otherwise, there's hardly any point in talking about rise of consciousness, ethics, morals. And Sydney, I just want to say I'm also an MBTI accredited trainer, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Therefore, I'm challenging this group, bring this forward. And also, not only that, I am challenging each of you to come and participate in the Latin American, the South Asian, the East Asian, the Pacific one, which I personally would like to know from somebody how to join starting tomorrow. I would love to be a part of that meeting. So somebody please send me the sign up link. But I'm challenging each of you all to come and participate in those. Last time it was Yoram, myself, and about 2 other people who were in the South Asian one last Tuesday. The week before that, it was just me, right? Yeah, there are no South Asians in Cardano.
Dimitri?
Yeah, just want to say that. Yeah, go ahead, Felix.
Yes, definitely understand your point of views, but on some points I simply have to push back because there is never the perfect time for the perfect conversation. And it's also, I think, on some kind not fair to say the experiment failed because your experiment failed. When you don't even tell the participants, hey, you're an experiment, let's try together, how can you say that they all failed? So it's dangerous to say you're sitting in a room with...
Felix, let me. Because I wanted to propose something. And I think it's not about failing, and I think it's not about, I think we are all on track, but maybe there are some concepts which are not clear, and what we are doing here is not very clear, yes? So from what I hear, Dimitri, I just want to tell you one thing. You are assuming a lot of things, but I read all your concerns, so I heard you. There is one property of the swarm, which maybe is not clear here, and Ernesto didn't make it very clear. And at least for ants is more clear than for other swarms. And that is called the stigmergy. That is indirect communication. Yes, I read what you had there, and I planned to take action, but not right now, a bit later, when I can and when I'm prepared. So stigmergy means that you leave a mark somewhere, and others are seeing the mark and are acting on it. And you tackled so many issues which are too dear to my heart to not mention, yes, to not state there that, and maybe not exactly how Felix put it, yes, but I don't feel challenged at all that, where I live and how the world works. No, this is why I live, in order to straighten the world, right? So I, come on board or take me on board. This is how I see your interventions. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the fact that you are here. I also appreciate your call for different times. It is, I agree. Yes, I completely agree. We said this after the town hall because I do not know. That's when the town hall is. I agree we can move also the town halls and other things. And I would like to participate in all of them. However, we can find ways through this indirect communication to actually, I believe we can, yes, to actually work together at different times and different time zones. I do not know, Ernesto, if you have something to say, but Felix, I interrupted you. So I just thought, that this is also bringing a different dimension. Okay.
No, I think I talk too much. I think I would like to hear what Felix has to say.
Just to finish, because Dimitri, the points you mentioned, I think everybody is agree here. And therefore we have the LATAM community who comes together and shuttles their own town hall. Therefore we have the Indonesian, Vietnamese, Japanese community who come together and set up their town halls, right? So
I'm not disagreeing with that. All I'm saying is this is generally the core group. No one will disagree that this is the biggest group. This is where the most discussion takes place. No one is disagreeing with that point. All I'm saying is, in order, if you want the South Asians and the East Asians and the West Asians and possibly the Pacific Ocean people to come once in a while, maybe once a month, even if once in 2 weeks is too much to ask, let's move this a little ahead. That's all I'm saying. Because otherwise, we will have our East Asian one on Saturday, we will have the South Asian one on Tuesday, the LATAM on Sunday, etc. But it will not have the same level right now as this group has, simply because of the time zone issue. That's what I'm suggesting. You can take it up or not. I think it's a good idea. I would be prepared to move mine a little from time to time if it meant more people came in. Similarly, please consider the same for this one, because after all, this is the initial one, this is the biggest one, this is the core group one, if I call it like that. No disrespect to any of the other ones, including myself, but this is the core group one.
I mean, I think everyone's ego here is tickled. It's not gonna have the same level. I'm like, wow, makes me feel really good. We have a great level of conversation, which I think is absolutely true. And thank you so much. I wonder if Ernesto has some words of wisdom on that. And because I believe in principle, there are some principles which I experienced it in a workshop with our Atala people. And I was also afraid that I'm not going to be able to be in the groups where I want because I was assigned automatically and so on and so forth. And the idea is that everybody is where they have to be, and that what happens is what should happen, and it has to happen. I don't know, Ernesto, if you have any words of wisdom on that, or any things to say to that this is the best group or whatever.
2 principles of regenerative vitality. I think out of the 8, that one is empowered participation. Everybody has to have the possibility of participation, but that participation needs to be proactive. There are many people here that haven't turned their camera on, that haven't participated. They participate in the chat, but they don't raise their hand. But also seeking balance. That is the other principle that balances this. What is the balance that you bring into this in order to create holistic wealth? And how do you honor community and place? Here we are a community. How do you honor really the community with your empowered participation, your seeking balance, and looking to create holistic wealth? If you ask yourself those questions, you have 50% of the solution. You need to be asking yourself those questions. What are the principles that I applied during the last 2 hours here? Have I honored those principles? Have I participated in any way, or just a passive? And if I participated too much, did I bring balance to the conversation? Did I honor the community, or is it my ego speaking? That I had something that I wanted to say yesterday and I brought it today, not respecting what the conversation was taking place. And I think if we ask ourselves, if we apply these principles of regenerative vitality to every action, to every word, to every intention, I think we have 50% of the solution.
And Robert, you have your hands up.
Ditto, that's all I have to say.
Well, there's quite a few I could answer. I put my hand up to talk to Ernesto's earlier point, but I'll just touch on some of the things to reinforce largely what has been just said. As a co-host of the Eastern Town Hall, I've got to do the Eastern Town Hall plug. There is no perfect time for anyone. If you move the event to a different time zone, then I probably wouldn't participate in the main town halls because getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning isn't my shtick, because it ruins the rest of my day. So the point being is that there's absolutely no perfect time. But actually a more important thing here is there's also a diversity and a plurality of voices. And one of the big things that you get out in smaller groups is the ability to get to know each other, get to understand people's concerns and where they're coming from, which way you might not in these sort of bigger rooms that are going on. And I've seen, catalysts, as Daniel points out, that the town hall itself is built up over time, the big one here, so to speak. That's just natural, but the whole idea of being polycentric is that we have different centers and different focuses in terms of what's going on. But I really, there was a couple of questions. I think it was Sydney that was talking about game theory and the role of game theory and stuff that was coming up. Actually, Ostrom's work, because Ernesto's talking about, actually focuses a lot on game theory and the rules around that. One of the reasons why I particularly liked her work over the years was because she went into the field. She did ethnographics research over 40 years. And by talking about Ostrom and talking about actually the workshop and all the group of people there, they went in and studied in the field and then came back into the labs and took what they understood to try and see whether they could develop the rules from that. And then they did experiments, looking at it from a game theoretic analysis point of view. The other flip side of game theory is mechanism design. So that is something that probably a lot of people don't know much about, but this is basically the way in which you design rule sets or automatic sets of rules, explicit rules. And we can do quite a bit of analysis around that. We've got some people in the Kirano community that are familiar with this sort of work. A couple of individuals work for IIG in particular, and obviously the IIG research team and things. But the other point, a couple of other points, I'll just make a statement because I've heard it mentioned a few times, one token, one vote. I'll make this broad sweeping statement here. If you have to go to a vote, your governance system has failed. Now, it's a broad generalization. Governance isn't about voting, it's about all the discourse and deliberation that occurs beforehand. And in many sense, voting is just really the tiebreaker or finding a ranking or something else like that. And finally, what I put my hand up for was really around what Ernesto was talking about in terms of gift economies. And particularly referring back to Indigenous cultures. Now, I'm Māori, I'm from New Zealand, Aotearoa. I descend from the Indigenous people of New Zealand. And most of the systems, such as North American Indians or generally any Indigenous communities around the world are holistic in the way that they think about stuff. And often a lot of the principles we talk about in terms of Ostrom's work, actually, she did lots of work, or the people who were there did lots of work in, for example, the rice paddies of the water management systems in Bali and all these other related areas. Essentially, ritual plays a really, really significant role in Indigenous cultures. We'll talk, Ernesto was bringing up Wampo as a form of reputation currency. In fact, you've got things such as the stone money of Yap, which is the idea of reputation currency. You've got kula rings, which were from the Micronesian, which were basically passed around. Their provenance of ownership was understood and known, and that went with the gifting of those items. They were just shells or things like that, but everyone knew where they came from. Even recently within sort of the COVID sort of situation, we've seen the rise of shell money again. And often a lot of the marriage rituals and stuff like that, it's about participation that's important. So by going through the process. And so these are the sort of things here in New Zealand. We have something like koha, which is referred to as gifts. So if anyone's read Mouse's The Gift, there'll be a lot of relationship there. What I really wanted to stress, building on Ernesto's point, was there's actually a lot we can learn from Indigenous cultures to bring back the humanness, the wholeness, because often they are connected not just to the humanness, but to the social and to the environmental components more broadly. And one of the things within token-based systems that we've got at the moment, we just think in terms of digital money, but in fact, what we're talking about here is value representation. These tokens can encode value just as the way Stone Money of Yap did, or the shell systems do, or any of the gift and reciprocity systems like potlatch or any similar sort of ritual systems around from Indigenous cultures, because largely that's what we're talking about now. They were all systems for governance. They were ways of participation. Even the idea of the stately home in England and the dueling system of pre-industrial times was a ritual to order and build trust. Okay, because basically the king could always take away your stately home. So by investing into it, you showed that you were willing to participate in that game. So in terms of value representation and the idea of using tokens beyond just their trade currency form, but also their reciprocity is really quite important, and areas which should be explored. And as someone who's extremely technical on the software engineering side of things, you can implement these systems today. And one of the best examples of a gift-based system that is using token-based dynamics is actually occurring on Ethereum, and it's known as Coordinate. And that is based on reciprocity. And I'd encourage people to go and have a good look at that one. It's very, very good. That's all I'll say, which was too much, but.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your contribution, Ernesto. I'm sure you have something.
for-
I was like, let's. I will co-author a proposal about this gift-based. I think I'll stay. I'll stay at my place. It's just so tempting, just so amazing to hear all these ideas, and we need them. We need it. Ernesto, please.
I will build on Robert, and I have to say I have had a hard stop at the hour, and I need to jump into another meeting, so I'll apologize. But Robert, this in Coordinate, there is a video between one of the founders and one of the anonymous people that work at Yearn, that they speak actually about how they're implementing these gifts and allocating them as a gift economy. And I recommend everybody to just listen to that YouTube video. You can find it in the Coordinate page. I think that is probably, as you say, Robert, one of the most advanced thinking processes at this time in order to create a new type of economy based on trust and gifts.
Ernesto, I did not understand where we can find it, but I will bug you later.
It's
you know.
Joe shared it. It's Coordinate.
Okay, great. Okay,
Coordination
cool.
and ape,
Cool.
because we're all apes trying to coordinate something. And I think they probably are in the vanguard of thinking how to implement some gift economy.
And before moving to Tivor,
Ernesto, thank you so much. Before you disappear, I just wanted to thank you so much for being here. I wanted also to tell you that I will be in touch with you. We need your wisdom, and so just so you know, on all these ideas. I mean, yes, it's not over. You're not off the hook.
No, but this is the commons. This is
the
how
commons.
we are commoners. Commoning is a verb, you know, it's some proactive. And we are also DAOers. And if this is a DAO, I'm DAOing here, and I hope you come and DAO with me. This is how we are going to construct the new world. This is how we are constructing at this time the new world. It's about cooperation. It's about intention. It's about purpose. And I think we all share. We're coming to share our best intention and our best purpose in a common way. So I thank you all for this invitation and your trust.
Thank you, Ernesto. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'll be in touch. Thank you. There are no words to thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
thanks. And also, I think we are over 3 hours already in the town hall. So it's great when we have those.
This was a fireside chat with Ernesto, actually. So it's I think we fulfilled our mission. I also have to say that I am pretty impressed with him now that he is out. I can say a few things, which happened quite recently, actually, and this was in parallel. Yes, with Ernesto, I was invited on another council for the metaverse and blah blah and blah blah. So we were on this call with the founder of that metaverse, blah 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 blah. And they sold the metaverse to us and so on, and what they want to do and how, and that they count on Ernesto's wisdom and knowledge and so on. But that was more like an old game, game A kind of endeavor. And Ernesto said at the end, like very bluntly, "Thank you, but I will have to say no. I will decline," and so on and so forth. So I don't have time for this. And then he said, "Mihaela, I will come to your fireside chat in front of everybody." And I'm like, oh wow. So definitely, yes, he is. This is where his heart is, his interests are, and so he is one of us. And I think it's a blessing to have him as well with us. And yeah, so we can call him in. And count on his wisdom further. Just wanted to let you know this little story that just happened. I know this is my session, but I think Felix, maybe you can take on from here because we're more or less finished. There's a lot to say and conclusions and all the issues which were brought to the fore. I would like to listen again. I took copious notes. There's so much knowledge, so much wisdom here, exactly. And just being here, commoning like this, of course, I'm an action figure. I mean, this is I want to take action. That's why I say, I have a proposal. Let's do this. Let's implement the tokens. How do we do it? So, of course, my wheels are spinning, but I think there's a lot of wisdom, which the project, yes, can per se, the Catalyst project per se can also take from this session, especially the I don't want to call it tokenomics of commoning, which was of emergence, I would call it, which Ernesto suggested with those tokens, and also yes, Robert mentioned, but many others, which their names, you know, I don't want to name each of them. Everyone who was here contributed significantly. I will listen to this again. I want to take the lessons and continue the journey. My main concern is how to put it in action. Exactly what I heard. Yes, Philip was saying also, how do I use this? I want to use it now. I need it now. There are so many things which need to be fixed. How do I use it now? So this, yes, to be continued. I see another hand. Felix,
Simon.
I give you the control now.
No, nobody has control. Then he has to control because he's the Zoom host. But Simon, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was like always kind of obvious, and I want to, you know, just put that question out there. If anyone, you know, thinks differently, because I feel like, you know, at least Solomon, I think he's not here anymore. He was more of the opinion that we should have weighted voting. But I think, as I said before, I think like a democratic voting model is just superior. Like history has shown that it is better than a few having the power. Also, it is more decentralized. I mean, in the, you know, we are on blockchain, right? So I just wanted to bring that up. And
yes, and I'm with you. You know what I wanted to say? Yes, democratic voting. With each of us self-checking for the principles of living systems, as which at least in my opinion, yes, which Ernesto emphasized, and also with the mechanisms in place for stirring the votes, yes, in an emergent manner, not like a static system, like we are, each of us in our box here, just like as we see it, like to make it a glued community, which is a swarm, a true swarm. So I am for democracy. The only thing is that even when Ernesto was saying, what principles did I apply? I was like, I already was blushing because I realized, yes, I infringed many of them in how I even stirred the pot here. So yeah, there's a lot of work for me. I'm talking for myself, and I believe for each and every one of us, and it's an accountability of how we act in the world and how we vote. So with that, yes, definitely, I believe that democracy, one man, one vote, can be successful.
Yes, I mean, like even now we don't really have a democracy. We have a representative democracy. So there's like people in the middle that vote for the people that, you know, partly make policies for us. So
because we don't have the mechanism, and then we entrust others who we trust. I would entrust, let's say, some others, yes, here I don't want to name them, to actually make decisions on my behalf, because I trust them that they would respect the principles more than my limited capacity can right now. I have to train some muscles, right? So that's where representative democracy can help, if we're not ready for it, or if there's a specialized issue where I don't know as much.
It's true, but it also creates a new class, kind of a governing class.
I agree. So there are open issues. How do we actually solve that and sort that out? I see hands. Felix,
just say one more thing. I've always felt like the weighted voting was a necessary evil, because of if every wallet could vote, then we would just create 1 million wallets and we would have 1 million votes. So yes, that's it. Thanks.
No, there is so much I have to say about that, and I will even not get started. And I think we're starting deep conversations which require indeed the depths and the time and the space to let them unfold properly. So this is definitely, if Felix, if you take notes, I want to be in the session which is tackling which is actually the initial topic of this discussion. So yes, to be continued is for good. And I just want to say that because of also my constraints, maybe after the two hands which are raised, I will have to slowly make myself invisible. That's okay. Thank you. Felix, please, you lead who speaks next.
Yeah, Sariel was first and then Farah.
I just have a quick perspective on the voting. It seems like one person, one vote is more fair, but I was reading recently about quadratic voting, and there is a consideration for the weightedness of each of those votes, that some people care more than other people about the thing that's being voted about. And that isn't reflected in the one person, one vote, the amount that the person is concerned about the thing. So when people have, an advantage, like some have more ADA than others for voting, even so, that doesn't really make it fair. But there are mathematical manipulations that could be applied to the voting statistics to make them more fair, and using, I guess, quadratic equations, I'm supposing. So I'm thinking that I'm seeing it not a lot as I'm voting for new projects, but I think there is something to be said about doing research into quadratic voting and applying it, in a lot of cases, in my opinion.
Definitely, and this is for me on the mechanism for for enabling fairness. And I agree. I think the issue is fairness, but on the other side, you see, for some people, they want to participate. They want to vote. They want to have a say, and that's a feeling which is hard to delegate for some people. So yes. To be thought about, and to be continued, this conversation as well. And of course, I don't want to say I know a lot about quadratic voting, but yes, I am well aware that it's out there, that it's applied, of course, by many of our, how do I call them? Frenemies? No, friends, let's call it, in blockchains. And yes, okay.
Well, the way it was presented in the paper that I read really focused on the individual's overall concern about the issue that's being voted on. And the quadratic voting makes it more fair by balancing out people who have perhaps a little more influence with the people that have a little bit less influence. So those that feel they can't participate enough get balanced up, and their concerns are taken into consideration with quadratic voting. I don't know what kind of computer technology that might involve, and I've been looking into the quantum computer, D-Wave, and they're using quadratics on their computer. So I'm going to do some research myself into what kind of programs could be run for voting on the D-Wave quantum computer using quadratics. And I'm going to go and find out if that's possible. And so I shall return, hopefully with some answers.
Yes, that's great. Exactly, to be continued. And there are also, at least I came across because there were many impact proposals. So I reviewed some proposals in the last fund, and I came across a proposal which was actually aiming to bring to the fore and make it more fair for the smaller stake pools to actually have a say and also get resources. I think such mechanisms, are kind of similar, and they all have to be looked into and carefully chosen. We can also find a way to dynamically choose the method depending on the issue and depending on the decision to be made. So as we create this living DAO, as we keep DAOing about the DAO. So yeah, great point. Yes, Felix on the list, please. It's on my list anyway. That's for the next one.
And Tefera, then Robert. But please also, we are really on 3.5 hours already. I don't want to force anybody to stay in the call here. So
I just, for my own understanding, I just want to play devil's advocate on this issue. A one man, one vote, it's predicated on, for example, in a country that we think all citizens own the country collectively, all of them are equal. But here in Cardano, we are trying to build a new resource, and that resource is not owned really collectively. It's a resource. The resource is owned by people who invested on it. So I don't know. Also, the quadratic voting mechanism, we are actually it would work in the opposite way than as it is implied here, because it again assumes that everybody is equal. Then people have more resources and they would vote more for it. So what would be, for example, the result of implementing, really making everyone equal? Wouldn't that destroy the ecosystem before it really stand by its own feet? We have to, of course, we have to strive for the decentralization of the network and the dissemination of the tokens to everyone. But how would incentivizing owning one token would help the network?
There's the bundle there of a lot of questions. You know, at one point I thought you're talking about proof of stake, or what's in it for me. But yeah, so we need a conversation, because for me, it's, if I wouldn't know where to start with the issues which you raise, but they are absolutely related to the intent of this conversation, which is it one man, one vote really the best way to make decisions all the time? So that's the main question, on all issues, on everything. And where and what? Yes, please.
Maybe also sometimes ask the question not, for what to vote, maybe ask the question, why do we need voting? And there's a problem, right? Why we use voting. And maybe looking at the problem at very first and say, okay, but why are we speaking about quadratic voting or voting delegation, but only voting? Where's the alternative to it, right? And maybe also to say that, because one thing I think why we need votes is when we are with our family, we don't need to vote, right? When we are with our best friends, we don't need to vote. When do we actually really need to vote? It's very often an issue of scalability, right? When we become too many. And now we are so many, now we have to find a way to make it.
Sometimes I flip a coin when my son wants a kind of meal for dinner and for another, and I want something else. But okay, we can sort it out quick.
So I think that one of the issues maybe is to say that we very first have to redesign a little bit the thinking and saying everything, how we define finance or economy or what, not everything is based on growth. Everything wants to include as many as possible, which makes it impossible to make good decisions because you are not able to make good decisions for 1 million of people. A good decision always inhabits a healthy relationship. Like in a really good relationship, it doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what your partner wants neither. It matters what a relation wants from you. And how can you keep a healthy environment with 2 million people, which you want now to say equality, but wait, equality also about the access to the knowledge, about the information for what they want. There is no equality. There never was. We live in a dualistic reality. So I think sometimes voting is the best we have, but somehow the worst I can imagine in some parts. Because each vote is a failure of consensus, right? Maybe keeping things small, like biology proved us since millions of years. We are not made of one huge cell, right? We are billions of cells. And they not become one huge cell. They always stay small enough. Maybe that's something also we know from our relations. Health relations we can have in a healthy environment where we don't have thousands of friends. It's not possible to have thousands of friends. Keeps things small. And with this redefine growth by really say, hey, even when it comes to rules, do I want to accept a rule which does not allow me to set a rule for myself? No, I don't give any shit about this. Therefore, I'm too anarchist. Does the environment allows me to set my own rule and to stick to it? I prefer much more to stick to my own rule than to try to stick to another man's rule. But this is not possible when I say, hey, we need one rule for all. Then we are very close again to fanatism, to fascism, to whatnot. That's not this one rule, right? I think just say, fuck it all, start from zero. Why actually do we need to vote? Because there are so many solutions. Why are there so many solutions? Oh, because we are so many people. Okay, great. So why do you need to vote when you have already the best solution for your environment? Why should I vote for an African city, what they should use for their whatnot distribution? I have no clue about it. Why should I even have the right to vote for them if I have no clue about it? This would be disrespectful to the people in place. So voting now lose all, for me, all his sense. Because now, as I include everybody in the global decision-making process to make a local decision, it only can fail. Because it means that the people on place has the same right like the person sitting in New York or Berlin or whatnot. So equality is extremely dangerous. There is no equality, again.
Equality of vote, equality of rights. I think, as you know, someone mentioned here that, you know, everybody has equality of opportunity here. That's great. Yes, so I can submit a proposal and everybody can. That's the equality of opportunity. So yes, equality of vote is what we're talking about. And now I'm like, yes, I'm taken, I'm smitten again, and I will steal this quote and put it in my signature, on my coffee cups, whatever. Vote equals failure of consensus. Okay, thank you.
Sorry for the long monologue as well. Robert, you had your hands up, then Simon.
Oh, you know, I agree with you there, Felix, on that front, is that, yeah, if basically if you have to vote, you've failed to form consensus about what's important and what direction you're going in. I'm going to drop off shortly, but I just wanted to touch on the quadratic voting a little bit and other similar sort of mechanisms. So first of all, Kendrick has been doing research into different forms of voting, and one in particular he's looking at is the quadratic voting mechanism. It suffers from one which is it's not Siebel resistant, so unfortunately it tends to descend down to one token, one vote, unless you've got some strong structure around it to prevent to build identity, and so therefore tie one person to a vote. But it's a good example of using what is known as social choice, which is to try and reveal preference. And what I'd like to stress here is that actually within Cardano, we've got different forms of expressing those preferences. One is obviously the staking mechanism. We can delegate to a stake pool, and that's revealing about the preferences I have, what I think, reading all the information I have available to me, what I think is the best stake pools to delegate to. Now, yeah, the reality is most of us will try and look for a good return on what we're doing, but spread it around. But what we're also seeing here now is like with the stuff that Felix is the initiative sort of that Felix is pushing through around the network, the community builder network sort of stake pools, is using that to show your preference to support local community groups. And the point here also within Catalyst voting, it's actually not one token, one vote. What we've got is an approval voting system. Okay, so what's happening here is I can cast my ballot against as many proposals as I like, and I've got 3 types of votes. I've got up and I've got down, and I don't care, don't vote. They're all different forms of revealing my preferences as an approval voting system. Now, obviously within social choice, there's a huge amount of different voting systems. But if you go back to the core idea here is that we're trying to reveal or reach consensus around our preferences as a group. And so how can we achieve that? One of those is deliberation through the dialogues and the conversation that we're having here. Others through different forms of mechanisms. And voting is just one of those in a non-price-based way. That's a form of voting. That's what's referred to as social choice. The other area is price-based mechanisms, which are market-based systems. So to build upon the idea of quadratic voting, there's also quadratic funding, which is something that Gitcoin uses to actually try and distribute the
That's what I meant
funding.
when I mentioned frenemies. Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity to explore. So if there's one thing to keep in mind is actually really, let's see if we can build better systems than just having to vote. How do we reveal the community's preferences overall in an aggregate, that is both global and local at the same time, especially given the tools and the technology we have available to us and the minds that we come to bring to it. There is a lot of prior research into a whole lot of things around social choice. So much going, because it's at the heart of democracy, it goes right back. There's different forms of democracy. We've got, in Catalyst, we're exhibiting all of those. We've got direct democracy in terms of everyone's trying to participate in the decision making, but through the circle, we've also got representational democracy in terms of we're trying to elect groups that represent us more broadly. And so there's a huge amount of work that can be explored and used within this. And that's why I sort of really sort of see what we have here in terms of the underlying technology, the network and the community is ability to explore this space that was typically not possible before because it was too expensive. And so we've become just thinking that the only approach to do things is representational democracy or something similar. It's not. There's a lot of other things out there. And with that, I am going to jump off and say matiwa, goodbye, and good to see you all.
Shall I jump in then? I was going to go back right the way to the main town hall, and I'm sorry I've got the pronunciation on this wrong, but Sophie H should ask the question about the challenge funds and how maybe we should have more challenge funds. And I think the response seemed to indicate there's 3 main tribes or clans where we've got engineers and investors, and then people who are looking for grassroots funding. And I was thinking maybe that we need to sort of separate the voting into smaller pools, because as an example at the moment, I'm taking it seriously, and there's about 450 different proposals at the moment. And some of them I'm just looking at going, I'm not going to vote on this because it's beyond my technical comprehension. But maybe if you can identify yourself with one of those clans, then maybe you can cut the voting down, and separating and streaming those proposals and the challenges within them might actually help all of us. And to allocate pots of money on those bases as well, it might solve some of this tension between people who want to get the tech building done and people who are trying to build grassroots stuff to find out problems that the tech doesn't solve yet. So there's more tech building to be done in future. So I haven't got the answer. It's sort of another question to ask into the group, isn't it, really? Whether that sounds like a good idea and if it's a possible way of breaking it all up. Okay, I shall hand over.
Over to Dimitri and then Marta.
Yeah, so I was listening to Felix, and Felix really opened my eyes to a different paradigm. Why do we need voting? So what came to my mind was, in agreement with Felix, we may not know, uh, like I'm sitting here, I may not know what is happening in a city in Africa and whether they need a particular thing or not. So how am I qualified to vote? So what came to my mind was, if we scrap voting completely and we go for qualitative assessment of the proposals, and all the proposals get the opportunity to get the funds, but in very small tranches, then they do that small tranche of work and they get the next amount of funds, etc. And then it came to my, then of course they have to fulfill to get the next block of work. So they cannot just get 2 big chunks or 3 big chunks or whatever. So that will have more accountability, more auditability. Then I asked, how will this happen? How can we monitor this? And then what came to my mind was, why not some sort of a smart contract put into place for each project, whereby it will monitor whether it's doing the thing based on certain auditable criteria, and then it will release that next little tranche of funds. So each and every project gets funded, but they don't get fully funded. They just get maybe 10% to start, and then they do something, and then it moves on as they keep providing evidence. That would also help with the, I thought, that will also help with the situation where funds are provided, but then there is no trackability after some time, and then it becomes a case of going after them to get evidence. This way, the trackability is built in, and then they perform and they get more, they perform and get more. So they are not at risk because they are performing. Um, so they will keep getting money. So they don't have to worry, I'm not going to get money, uh, because they know if I perform, I'll get the money. And that's just an idea. You all can think about it.
And Martha, please go for it.
Hey, thanks. I can only speak about my experience from where I am from. So I'm from the US, and my experience and observations of voting. So one thing that I wanted to add was that what is on the ballot is a very key and important point, and it reveals the structure or authority or influence of the group. And in the United States, we have one vote, one person, but we also, and historically, when there was a more cohesive population, that there was an intimacy between the one person and the ballot items. And it was taken very seriously, and everything was counted very carefully. And the people who were at the voting centers, it was almost like you had to, prove you actually were a living being if you could even go in and vote. So I think that that was one part of it. But then we ended up with lobbying. So various powerful groups who engaged and had a lot of money, which is kind of like having a lot of wallets, were able to influence their senators and what was on the ballot. So that affected things greatly. And then the people who voted with their one vote no longer had a say anymore. And then we also have the electoral college, which was representative government based on the number of people in a given area. So I think a lot of those pieces are what we're talking about here. And as we've seen in the United States, for anybody that's from there, we know that it has completely broken down in terms of any kind of fairness or being able to represent the people and what they want. And so basically what has happened is that the ballot no longer exists. So just I think that Felix's point has a lot of very valid and important pieces to it, that why do we need to vote? But I think that the deal is that we need to be able to know what we want to be on the ballot, and we need to be able to have a voice in what we want to put on the ballot. That's the really important part. And I think that I don't think we've addressed that yet here in terms of being able to maintain or move towards a decentralized governance. So that's what I wanted to add. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I think it's so revolutionary, the sort of why to vote, right? Why we need to vote. And we are so used to voting. but maybe let's develop that. I mean, let's create a group that works. How it will look if we are not voting, right? How the system will look, how the decision will be made. I mean, if we look on the CA and VCA process, it's a kind of non-voting process, right? Somehow, if you want, with challenges, with some successes and some challenges. But I mean, it's very interesting to go deep into that and actually see how it will work and maybe try it. I mean, in Cardano for Climate, we don't have voting system, right? And we grow already to 200 people in 4 months and doing a lot of things, and it's kind of growing. So, I mean, anyway, it's just a thought to go deep into that, because I think it's very revolutionary. And what I love in this community, and it doesn't matter, I mean, who you are, it matters what you do, right? What's the action, what's the task you're doing, how you actually doing things and contributing, and then things happen with people, you know, that meet and do things. So I mean, again, I mean, I would love to go more deep into that, how it will look, how we will make decision without voting. And we can try with different things already, right? We can try different processes without voting and see how it works and build models around that.
And some decisions are, you know, made implicitly. I think that's also what Felix mentioned, but also the mechanism which some of the mechanisms which Ernesto emphasized. So definitely, you know, my last word is kind of to be continued, because there have been made several proposals here, which I'd like, first of all, to reflect on that. It's amazing, yes, the gifting, the trust tokens, and so on and so forth. So there are mechanisms. So now we're departing from voting and creating a commons. And the problem is changed from how we vote into how are we commoning. And I think that's, to me, the takeaway from here. So maybe even the initial, yes, what's in a vote, it's becoming irrelevant now, as long as if we learn to common well. So probably a next meeting will be about that. And I know the guy who wrote the book on commoning, yes, become a commoner or stuff like that. So I can invite him, and we can continue the conversations with him. But I would like to thank you all, and please forgive me that I will have to go now. And thank you so much for the invitation, Felix, and for being here. I really, it means the world to me, and I cannot wait to have the continuation. Thank you. I will just simply disappear now.
Thank you, Dr. M. Let's say thanks, you guys. Open
thank
the
you,
mic.
thank you. I hear
Thank
it.
you,
I
thank
hear
you,
it.
thank
Thanks
you.
a lot, ma'am.
No need to open the mic.
Thank you.
As we say, it is implicit. No vote, you know. No,
no vote.
Thank you. It's great to hear your voices, though. Yes.
Yes. Say, we
but
said
I know
hello.
they're there. I feel it. We have
said
our...
hello at the beginning. Let's say goodbye. Ciao. Arrivederci. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Woo. So,
Next.
what is this called? A rolling town hall? Is that what it is when it goes over 8 hours?
Exactly.
It goes over time zones, doesn't it?
I think the longest one was 6 hours so far. This was a rough one. But maybe we should not take this as a challenge to say let's talk. I'm not sure if it's a healthy one.
Well, I'm going on 6 hours of meetings today, so it's been pretty cool. You know
Send
what
your wallet addresses.
What came to me was, what if we could divvy up this big pot into smaller groups, you know, into just allow the community to take certain portions of funds, and we work on consensus within that fund, and everybody works. We learn how to collaborate. We learn how to use our resources sustainably, cooperate, and we actually get things done. You know, that would be my utopia, I think. What came to mind was this forest that's been clear cut, and the First Nations that are caretakers for it, they went through it and they found 6 trees that they could use for canoe building. And that's, you know, it's devastating out of a forest that they've got left. And what they've chosen to do is use 1, save 5 for next generation. So, you know, if we could, you know, if we could think outside this box of voting. Yeah.
And maybe this is also, you know,
See you,
because in the chat you wrote as well, what are the next steps? I think the next steps are very often, we all are in our own projects with our own communities. The responsibility very often, I think, is what we do here already. Yeah, the last point from the slides, right? We inspire each other via these conversations. And we create a kind of invisible alignment somehow. And then we have the possibility, and I think also the responsibility to say, okay, what do we actually want to do? In our groups very first. I think no one of us should have to go to say, oh, let's redesign whole Catalyst. It makes no sense. Catalyst is, the goal is to redefine it already.
It's
Why do you?
bigger than us. It's bigger than
Exactly.
anyone can put in a box.
But everybody for itself. And I think that now, as we become a little bit familiar with the system and all, we have all the freedom to do whatever we want. For example, what I like a lot is the recent experimentation with Swarm, to say, okay, we got a proposal, we are paid for the after town halls. Well, this year normally is a funded proposal, what we are doing here right now. And okay, we can see this, okay, on the normal level and say, okay, let's pay the person or the person who set it up and run it and everything. Or to say, okay, let's define it as a fund and we use it however we want. And experiment with Kaiser, for example. You know, when you look on it, it's a kind of really interesting situation, because you don't need to vote that Kaiser merits $1,000 per month for what he's doing, right? Because everybody knows what he's doing and there is no valid counter argument against it, really. So when you have a proposal like this, a proposal just needs to be good enough that a vote becomes obsolete. And this is the role now, maybe from a group, to identify not which many solutions do we have, now what are the best solutions where we know vote isn't even needed because it's one. It simply makes too much sense. And this only works when you have the trust, because something like this, I think vote is somehow a way to discover or explore a way to replace trust with something else. If I trust enough people, we don't need to vote, right? We need to vote when I don't have the possibility anymore to trust all the people with which I make this decision. So a project, maybe a governance in this area, is you identify the most logic, the most simple, the most plausible, whatnot proposal situation. And this identification then you bring to the community, and the community now simply makes the approval.
And if they don't like it, they'll say, hey, hang on a second, what about this one? So they object.
But it's about argumentation. It's not about voting or not.
So they object and you say, okay, what is this about? And you go deeper into that objection. You go, oh, I didn't see that side. Let's incorporate this into it. And because it's small enough, you can incorporate it and turn it into even a better proposal.
And it's not a proposal anymore.
Really no, not a proposal, but to come to consensus.
I mean, like, I love the mindset and I mean what you said, and to find a solution for that in the way, but it still kind of asks for a vote, right? A vote of confidence for that, right? I mean, for this process that you did as an example, which you know that there is consensus for that, you know that it's clear for everyone, but the process you still kind of ask for a vote.
It's not a
somehow.
Vote.
It's not a vote, but yeah, I mean...
Because actually, maybe that's a good point. What actually is a vote? It's a vote exactly the same like a kudo or a thumbs up.
Or a like.
Exactly. Are there differences?
I don't know, but what's the meaning of a like? I mean, again, I mean, if you have 1,000 people in the community and 20 did like, what's the meaning of that? I don't know. I mean, I'm not... I'm just opening for discussion because I think it's so important. Because sorry, Marta.
I started interjecting. Sorry. Did you want to finish?
No, I'm done. I mean.
Okay. Well, I was just saying that the thing about this is though, and I'm very willing and interested to explore it, the no voting thing. But the thing is that there's also though how it's been used in history. Is to and in the US is to sort of use authority, which is different than power, to sort of intimidate people into agreeing or not agreeing. And I think that that's one of the dangers of it. So how do we do that without being vulnerable to this kind of influence? You know, undue, I guess you would call it undue influence.
Yeah, I mean, I was even surprised that you needed actually people to comment on that. To be honest, when you ask, I mean, it makes sense for me that you don't even need to ask in that specific occasion. But
you mean me?
no, I mean Felix about the process. No, not about that. I mean,
okay.
Process of Felix. Sorry for that. About Swarm, basically.
Because the approval there follows an idea which says, okay, somehow there's always leadership, right? And we have to redefine leadership. As same like there will always be finance in the modern world. We have to redefine it. There always will be economy. We have to redefine it anyway. And in this regard, for example, to say, okay, what looks like leadership as a service? You, as service to your community, you make sure the resources are there. You make sure that you are able to identify what's happening in your community, in your ecosystem, that you bring to the community, they approve. Now, it's a sign of trust in this regard. They once, okay, vote for the agreement, okay, that Kaiser gets $1,000, but they also vote on the trust to say, hey, okay, this person is able to make a decision because it's not a decision for himself. This decision is his role in leadership in service to its community. Because literally, I take my own money for this, right? This is normally the funds I receive for organizing this after town hall. So, and it's on my wallet. I don't even need to ask you for anything. This is my money. I can do with it whatever I want, right? It's voted and funded by the community.
To you.
But then we simply, when we move on like this and say, okay, I am paid for this service and this is my role, we will simply create the same shitty environment around. It's also that this is only possible when you say, okay, normally I receive this, but I will take less for myself to take the resources which are trusted to me by my environment and give it back to them. You give more back than you take, which accelerates the process where you will always get more because it's never yours. It's a trusted assignment from your community. Say, oh, okay, I trust that this person is able to make a good decision, not only for individual, but for the ecosystem itself, but needs to be small enough, I think.
I mean, if we are able to get to consensus without voting, it would be amazing. More and more of that. I think it's.
We have to somehow, because very soon we will have voting delegation, and very soon we will have huge problems to face with this. No, the huge voting delegations, that they will not come to people here in the community. That's the point I mentioned before with, hey, when there's a seat in Africa, should I even vote for it? So by YouTubers and Twitterers and people who have 6, 7 stake pools and speak about decentralization. And all of them are full. And those will be people who will have a lot of voting power. So the right to make a decision in our ecosystem. And it gives us nothing to say, hey, shit, this we are against and blah, blah, blah. Right? We have to develop alternatives which show, hey, it's effective, it works, and it's effective. And with this, somehow, I really believe in redefining economy, politics, whatnot, in an ethical aspect.
Yeah, gotta go. My battery's low. Gonna cut out anytime. So ciao, you guys. Take care.
Ciao, Melanie.
Ciao, Melanie.
Bye, Melanie.
Bye, Marta.
Yep. And that's
If you join, you can see how it works in the Discord server for Swarm. So
Well,
it's a good start for trying to make it easier to get things done, for sure.
I wouldn't say that it works because it's just too young that we can.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting stuck on, is just like, yeah, we've given 4 people money, like 4 different people money over the course of like the last month or so. And so it's makes sense now because so many people have been working for so long and haven't gotten paid, you know? There will, at some point, there will be more of a discussion around, and the concerns that I think it's like kind of getting, it's kind of like, I like to think of these types of operations as like almost like pirate ships, maybe, in that there's a captain, but if at any point any of his men don't like what he's doing or disagree with him, or he can the ramifications of getting sideways with the rest of the people in your group are high enough that there's balance there, and it takes leadership. That's how I like to look at the way I kind of operate inside my friend groups, at least. And I see it replicated here in Swarm a little bit.
That's one. It's a replication of a bunch of shit because it's everybody who participates, right?
Right.
Everybody who stands up for it. It's an idea. Swarm is not a DAO. Swarm will never be a DAO. So it's not an enterprise and won't be. It's a simple idea. That's it. Which makes everybody, because who can own an idea? Nobody owns the idea.
Yeah.
If you share your idea, then the idea becomes powerful. A man with only man with idea is a lonely man with idea. Man with a strong idea who can share this idea with hundreds and thousands.
Wield it.
Yeah, then it becomes a movement. Then it becomes something else, right? Only when it's shared.
Yeah. It lives in the space between us, your head and your thoughts. That's interesting too. Like you see it even in like just listening to lots of podcasts and whatnot. You know, you'd be thinking about some stuff that definitely is like completely creative and on your own, and then someone somewhere else is all of a sudden talking about it, and you definitely haven't heard them doing that. So what are these? Those are ideas. Those are ideas that we already share, like being welded into us, into different people thinking about the same types of things because of like what's happening in the world. And I don't know, I see stuff like that. Fractalization of reality, and or like thought fractals.
But guys, maybe let's call it a day. 4 hours again.
Yeah.
It's not healthy to get used to this, you know.
Nothing good happens after 10 o'clock.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Night, Morpheus.
Thank you very much. Good night.